Haven channel. Let's Talk is a safe place for atheists, those questioning or leaving religion, and anyone that wants to ask questions and have respectful discussions. From the U.S., call us at 984-789-4787. And from outside the U.S., call us in from your computer using the URL on the screen. Let's get.
This is Skeptic Haven. Let's talk.
What's up, man? How we doing?
Hi, what's up, heathens?
There you go. There you go. We were hoping for that. But what's up, man? How you doing?
Doing pretty good. I got bit by a dog tonight, so yeah, that's not fun, but doing good otherwise.
Right. Oh, yeah. Do you have to go to the hospital for that? Is that it?
No,
I mean,
it was just a little bite. It's nothing that bad. I just washed it really good with some antibacterial and then put some Neosporin on it. My Casey, my wife, she wrapped it up really nice, so should be fine.
Hell yeah. No, yeah, that sucks though. I've been there. It's not fun. But yeah, man. So yeah, thanks for hanging out. Yeah, I was I actually got we have free flow coming up, so that should be cool.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to see you at Free Flow. I actually ended up sponsoring a little bit, not much, but I did send in some money to get I think my logo put up somewhere or something. Not that part really doesn't bother me or matter to me all that much, but I did send in money to kind of help get things going over there.
That's cool. Yeah, because I was talking to, and now I can't remember who it was, but they were like, I guess you went to a different convention just hanging out, and they were like, "Is that?" And they're like, "No, somebody would have said something, or he'd have like you said, like a logo or something." Like, no, he's just there hanging out. Like, yep, that's it. He's just chilling. Hell yeah, it's all right. So hopefully today we can take some calls, and get some arguments for God if if that's what they want to talk about. But what do you think? I don't know if I've asked you this. What's the most convincing argument that you've heard for a God?
None of them are convincing to me. But I think I don't know. I don't find any of them convincing, but I think that the one that I think is I guess the one that has the least evidence against it would just be like a more deistic kind of God, like a God that just sort of fucked off and isn't really concerning themselves with our lives or anything like that. Like, I think if there is a God out there, I think that one would be the one to exist. But I mean, it kind of comes down to, well, how do you prove that God? Is there any way that you can actually provide evidence for that? And you really can't. It's an unfalsifiable claim. So it just ends up being, something that you can speculate about, but you'll never know.
Right. See, and that's interesting. You go that direction because, like, I always think of that as like not really being a god. Like, so let me rephrase. If something like that caused the universe, and because what's going to happen is if we did find, let's say we found something out there that we're like, oh, this caused the universe, and it looks like it might be sentient or something like that. Every person that believes in a god's like, that's mine. That's the one. That's exactly what I was talking about the whole time. And it's like, no, it's not. Like, your God has all these other characteristics that make it this completely different thing. You know what I mean? But I don't know. So to me, I'm like, that would be almost a different thing. But in calling it a God, I almost feel like is I don't know. But that's just my opinion. Because like when people say a God, they're like talking about a very specific thing. Most of the time, right? So I don't know. That's why I always have to pull people back, because they always, when you're an atheist, they're like, oh, so you don't even think that thing could be there or whatever. But I'm like, but that's not, wouldn't even know if that was a God. Like, why we wouldn't call that a God, right?
Right. Yeah, I hate it when people are constantly trying to make it seem like, they're arguing for a generic kind of God, because that's never what people have in mind whenever they're arguing for God. They always have a very specific version of God in mind, and I always rather talk about that specific version of God rather than any other definition of God that somebody might be able to pull out of their butt, that's like pared down and not really representative of what they think.
Exactly. Well, isn't that why they like in philosophy they have like the god of classical theism, right? Like then they had to like boil it down, like, all right, fine. Look, all right, we have like one group of characteristics that we're gonna call the god of classical theism, so everybody can at least just stop arguing. We can just make it one thing. And that's what it felt like. Because everybody had so many different interpretations of whatever God even could be, according to whoever,
Right.
But yeah, it is interesting. I always go with I think the most, I don't know, it's hard for me because I was raised the way I was. So I think like the design stuff is hard, because to us it looks like, I mean, for me, like I said, like raised like fundamentalist and everything. They're like, but look at the trees. Like I feel like look at the trees is probably the most honest and is like, but at the end of the day, you're just kind of post hoc rationalizing something and saying it had to be designed because it looks that way to me. And it looks like something I would have made if I was a magic. So that's but
I don't know, the arguments from design are always so like lacking for me personally, just because of the fact that that they can never give you good criteria to distinguish between designed and undesigned objects, because like the whole thing requires everything to be designed. And
right.
so it's rather odd to me when people are they're always trying to convince me that everything is definitely designed, when we can obviously tell between nature, like things that nature has produced, and things that humans have produced, humans have designed. We can always distinguish between those things.
Right. And it's on our planet, on our little planet, it looks like things have purpose just because of the way life is sort of developed. Right. But if you talk about like purpose and some stuff that was designed, like what the hell is the purpose of a black hole? Like when you get into like space stuff, it's like it really falls off because everything's just so wacky out there. Yeah, it's kind of strange. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's probably my most convincing ones, just because I was raised on like the Ray Comfort stuff, so that was always a big.
Ray Comfort's pretty slimy in my opinion of him, because of the fact that what he does is Ray Comfort will redefine what it means to be Christian, so that only the people that fit his very strict definition are considered Christian, and the ones that match his very particular version of Christianity are, of course, evangelicals. But also, as soon as you become a Christian, you literally never do a sin again. And so, like that, essentially, if you see a Christian that's caught in the news and they're like, they're talking they're talking about how they're a youth pastor or something like that, and they diddled kids. Well, that guy obviously wasn't a real Christian. And so they have all of these different ways to get around like accepting that Christians do horrible things all the time.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's the weird one too, because like a lot of the way the arguments will work is that it starts out saying there has to be a like a punishment or whatever for like there has to be justice, right? There has to be cosmic justice. And they're like, so that, people that do bad things have to be punished or at least like held accountable and everything. And they're like, and that's why a God has to exist. And then they go on to be like, but if you just say, you repent and stuff, and then you didn't actually, then Jesus will forgive you no matter what you've done. And it's like, well, then hold on a second. Doesn't that cancel out your last argument that a God has to exist because there has to be justice? Because now you just made it to where it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It's weird how it just, I don't know, it feels like it cancels it out.
No, it totally does. It totally cancels it out. And that's why I've never really liked the whole justice thing of Christianity, because they always want to act like, well, the only way that you'll get justice is, you know, by being a Christian, or the only true justice that exists is the judgment of God and all this other shit. But it's like, you know, under certain definitions or theologies of Christianity, you don't have to actually be a good person. You just got to believe in Jesus. And
Right.
then that's where they get into the slimy, you know, different I guess ways around accepting that people are Christian. They're like, they're faux Christian, they're fake Christians, they're not really Christian, kind of
Right.
thing.
Yeah, that is weird to me. And the fact that, and I didn't realize this, that people were saying like Dahmer was like got saved in prison or whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's great. Like that kind of makes those, when you point to stuff like that. So you're saying like Dahmer would have gone to heaven, and somebody
Yeah.
like Anne Frank or something would have gone to hell, right? Like that just
Right.
just shows like that the whole justice thing's bull crap. You know, it's just nonsense.
I totally agree. I think that I think it's all totally nonsense. And also, I think the moral argument is probably one of the worst arguments.
Oh yeah, what with the William Lane Craig, like if there's no God, then there's no objective morality, like that version.
Right. Yeah, yeah. If there's no God, then there are no objective more duties and morals or something like that. And I mean, I think that with God, like there's no way to be objective about what's moral. I mean, so William Lane Craig is a guy who even recently, but also in the past, has you know, just come right out and said that, you know, that it was a good thing for the Israelites to slaughter the Midianite children in Numbers 31, because apparently allowing the kids to continue to be pagan is a worse thing than just go ahead and, you know, slaughtering them. So, you know,
Jesus,
there's that.
that's insane. What? That's so crazy.
I
They
know.
can say that, like, and with a straight face. That's great. Yeah, because I mean, to me, it almost like the first commandment almost is like it seems like the basis of racism, you know, where it's just like
Mhm.
believing in another god or having, you know, being another culture is evil in and of itself, right? You've broken the law if you worship a different god. Like that's just racist. I don't know. It's just, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's where they based a lot of it off of anyway. And then you get like the, you know, the being able to enslave the people around them because they believe in different gods. Yeah.
Yeah. That's also why, you know, people stating that like the United States is based on Judeo-Christian beliefs. It's like, if you read the Constitution, it is totally antithetical to a lot of the things that the Bible like states. So, you know, it's definitely not based in Judeo-Christian beliefs. It's actually based in opposition to a lot of the Judeo-Christian beliefs, even ones that were commonly held back when the Constitution was written. So, you know, it's just it's really weird to hear Christian nationalists try to claim that when it's obviously not true.
Yeah, I don't think they know the establishment clause. You know, it's like it's the first line of the first clause of the First Amendment. You know, it's all the firsts is like you cannot, you know, we'll never make a law respecting a religion or respecting the establishment of a religion. Yeah.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like they want, and I don't, and then now it feels like, oh God, it's almost annoying talking about this right now because of how, how you know, they're breaking everything apart so that, you know, they can basically just start forcing their religion in on everybody.
Oh, they're definitely destroying like everything that America has stood for right now. So, I mean, it's no surprise, you know, that they're doing that. This has kind of been the long game for a while, since about the 1980s.
Right. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like the Reagan started this whole mess.
Yeah, well, I mean, it started right around the Reagan time, but everything leading up to the Reagan period kind of spurred it, and then they just sort of played the long game until, you know, this past election and everything. So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll
Well,
just have to see.
and now they got like full, you know, carte blanche, it seems right now to do just everything. It's just like so frustrating. Like going to be, it's just like an oligarchy is what it feels like. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. I mean, Trump has directly said that that $5 million gold card thing is meant to bring in just rich immigrants. And specifically, somebody asked him about Russian oligarchs, and he's like, "Yeah, sure, them too." And
Wow.
so it just kind of seems like they just literally want to transport some of the oligarchs from Russia to here so that they can institute an oligarchy here.
Good God. Yeah. That's terrifying. That's enough. Jeez Louise. Yeah. And it doesn't, I don't know. It seems like and it's like I'm starting to notice now too. I remember like growing up there, I was like, "Hey, we like small government and everything, right?" And like, "Oh, we like small government," and now I'm starting to see why. Because it's like, oh yeah, then it's just like a couple people who are the entire government, and they get all the power. you know, It's like, yeah, you want a king? That's a king, and no, but Jesus, crazy. But yeah, it's frustrating.
Hmm. I totally agree.
Yeah. And you got these I'm just fine. And well, I don't know if you had putting this on Facebook, but you were saying that they had put out an email to you.
Oh, what are you talking about? The Trump admin or Doge or whatever?
Doge, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they're basically making all federal employees, report 5 things they did the previous week, which is really awkward because, like, what do you do if you're like going on vacation or something? Like, I mean, if I don't send in a weekly report about what I did, like, am I going to get let go? Like, can I just never take like a vacation or something like that? Which is going to be really difficult for me because I've got one coming up here in March when we go down to Free Flow.
Right, right.
So I mean, I'm going to be missing like a day of work, and I don't know if I'm just supposed to bring like my work phone and like send an email while I'm like on vacation. I don't know.
Just five.
And
You just got to do 5 emails, and then you can be like, I sent 5 emails.
I mean, it's not difficult to collect like 5 things because I do way more than 5 things. So I mean,
Right.
that's not the problem. The problem is the fact that where they're just trying to put an undue burden on the workforce as a way to have reasons to forcibly fire people or force them out of their jobs is essentially what the purpose is.
Jeez, that's insane.
Yeah.
And this was a Project 2025 thing, right? Like I feel like I remember reading
Mhm.
about the
It's
administrative.
in yeah, it's in Project 2025. I mean, all of this is the dissolving the Department of Education. That's in there. Firing as many federal employees as possible. That's in there. And even one of the architects of Project 2025 said that his goal was to terrorize the federal workforce, and to make it so that they are just scared to call to come into work. And so I mean, it's a total shit show right now.
What the hell is the purpose of it? Like, I'm just trying to understand, even from their deluded, insane perspective, what the hell is it? How is this good for even the conservatives? Like, I don't understand. I'm so
Well,
confused.
so it the way that it's good for conservatives is that the conservatives they rake in the money from lobbyists and all that. The lobbyists want them to deregulate pretty much all of America, right? Um, they want them to deregulate so that they can just do whatever they can to make as much profit as they can. And so by cutting the federal workforce and by forcing people out of their jobs, what they can do is once everybody's out, they can ideologically screen for people that they want to put in positions. So that way, throughout the entire like I guess government, you just have ideologues at every level that are controlling things. So essentially, the conservatives are going to have the control of the 100% the entire government. Everybody's just going to do whatever Trump says. So like, there's not going to be any merit behind it. It's just going to be, will you do what the president says? And if you will, then you get to have a job. And so That's what they're looking for. And all of this is so that they can funnel money into private contractors, and not all private contractors, obviously. It's only certain ones that, are paying the Republicans to give them contracts. And I mean, Donald Trump has directly said, oh, this is like pay to play now. Because he's like, if you spend $1 billion in America, then we will fast track everything, and we will throw out the regulations and everything like that. Because like another thing that's in Project 2025 is throwing out OSHA regulations, like OSHA in general. The thing that's supposed to protect people at their jobs.
Right.
Like they don't want to have to spend money to protect their workers, which seems a little dumb when you think about it. But it's what they're doing.
Because like this is where I feel like they don't think, like there's a reason why a lot of this stuff is set up the way that it is, and it is because it ends up being more expensive when you got dead bodies in the street that you got to clean up all the time, and then you get people getting hurt and messed up at work all the time, and all these other things that happen constantly. It's going to cost them more money. That's why we have those institutions set up to protect that type of stuff, so that we don't have those problems that cost more money, which, oh God, it's just like, even from a selfish perspective, it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Jesus. Crazy. Like, wow, I'm just fascinated by this. And it's so weird that, this is like the Christian thing, that is the most prominent belief or whatever, the most prominent like set of beliefs or whatever, as far as like politics goes. And it doesn't, how do they not put it together that, I mean, I don't believe in Revelation. Obviously it's all silly, but if I did, I feel like Trump and Elon Musk would check every damn box that would be the Antichrist and the prophet, right? Like, isn't that?
Yeah.
It would just spell profit differently. It would be the prophets, like with the FIT. But
yeah,
but Jesus, yeah. I don't know how they don't see this. It's so weird to me.
yeah. I don't understand either. They are just so hell bent on either owning the libs or like I'm talking about common conservatives now. I feel like they're just seriously focused on, the fact that I don't know if maybe they couldn't get a federal job or something like that, but they definitely want to dismantle the federal government to the point where I guess there's just no protections for anybody, which I don't understand why, common conservatives are convinced that that's a good thing. But I think that they're all starting to sort of fuck around and find out right now. There's several places on Facebook, Reddit, and all that kind of stuff where they post up conservatives that are fucking around and finding out. And so like it's like they basically say, look, I don't hold no DEI business. I'm a good conservative Christian person. And it's like, it doesn't matter, because they're just looking to cut everything that they can, and they're only funneling money into the richest 1%, baseline. And so it's rather crazy to see a lot of the common conservatives think that the oligarchs are on their side. Like, they're not on your side. The billionaires are on the billionaires' side.
And that's it. Yeah. And they're not even really on their side. I mean, they're going to turn on each other eventually. Just give them time. But, but wow, that's crazy. And the fact that, and because it seems like the being able, everybody having their phones and being able to be like, programmed, it almost seems, by the information that they have and the algorithms that set up information to give them what they want all the time. It is like this perfect, like, feeding tube or whatever for their agenda of just get everybody. It's like they're programming them to be mad at certain people and stuff, and then the politicians are just like, hey, we'll be mean to those people, and they're perfect. I don't need rights as long as you're as long as you hurt the people you programmed me to hate.
Oh, they don't. Yeah, they don't think that it's going to apply to them, but like it always ends up applying to them. I mean, it's that old adage of like, well, first they came for this group, then they came for that group, and it's like it's just a matter of time before they start coming to you,
Right.
Coming for you. And they just, I guess the conservatives never believe that they are going to be the next group that the 1%. Christian conservative oligarchy are going to come for like the poor part of that part of the government, or
Right.
not government, but American society. They don't ever think about that. And then when it happens to them, they're like, but I ain't no DEI. And it's like, you're just replacing any racial slur that you want to put there with DEI. Like that's
Right.
essentially what it is.
Exactly. Yeah, the DEI stuff is insane to me. Like, honestly, the weird part about it is that DEI was not even really what anybody like. The people wanted, people of color and wanted the Civil Rights Act enforced. That's it. DEI was kind of the thing to go. Okay, well, we made them take a training. And so that was, that was it. So it was like already like this meet in the middle type of nonsense, just so they didn't, you know what I mean? So they could always just, if anybody did anything, they'd be like, well, we'll take a training. It was just, it's just this extra. And even that, they're like, no, that we hate that too. And it's like, my goodness, y'all are great. They're bloodthirsty. This is just insane. Jesus. Yeah. My God. Yeah.
Well, so who are you? Which speaker are you most excited for at Free Flow?
I think, let's see, it wasn't Seth Andrews is going to be there, right?
Yep.
Oh yeah,
Seth is going to be there.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I actually saw him once already down in the Clearwater. Yeah, and
okay.
in the land of the crazy pilot people all over the place. So weird. I'm like, why are there so many pilots around here? Nikki was like, oh no, those aren't pilot. Those are crazy people. They're not pilots. It's like Scientologists wear that. But yeah, it's weird. But yeah, no, I think he's probably is. I'm looking forward to actually getting to know a lot of the speakers there, because I didn't really recognize several of them. So I'm looking forward to kind of seeing, being introduced to people.
Yeah. Honestly, I can't wait to meet up with Forrest again. It was really cool seeing him. Yeah, I saw him up in Canada last year. So it'll be fun seeing him again.
Oh, I didn't even realize he was going to be there. That's weird. I could have sworn on the list I seen, I didn't see him on there. That's awesome. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be really cool then. Hell yeah. Yeah, he's really fun. I just he did a I want to say it was like a like TED Talk type of thing. It wasn't a TED Talk, but it was, it was something like that. And right. And man, it was awesome. Like just about evolution, and he did like this whole kind of part about how like it kind of spoke to me, because I was one of those people that he was talking about, that is like, if you talk about evolution and things like that, it's like you're talking to people that have to be kind of like slow walked out of it, because they think that their entire meaning and everything was completely tied to the inception of the universe, and that they were crafted by some magical being. And so when you're having these conversations, it's and he took a very compassionate perspective on it. It was really sweet, and I was just like, oh, that's so nice, because he's absolutely right. That is like where a lot of us are coming from. It's just and that can be kind of shattering, when you realize, oh, none of this is true, but yeah. It's like you get all your meaning, all of your, everything. And it's weird too, because and I've talked to different, family members, and I always talk about like what gives life meaning and what makes people valuable. And a lot of times they'll say that we were made in the image of God. And I'm always like, now, like, and I used to say that, and it was like, yeah, because we're made in the image of God. And then now I'm like looking back going, how does that equal people have value? Like, what does the image that we're made in actually mean anything? Like, what does that have to do with anything? You know what I mean? I don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that originally what it meant was that, people, they regularly anthropomorphized like these deities, just as, them. And I think that goes back to the idea that, the gods were just, they looked like normal people and all that other kind of stuff. And they lived in this very physical place that was, in the clouds or whatnot. And so, I mean, I think that it's just basically ancient peoples, they anthropomorphize things as with human characteristics. And if these were like agents that were controlling them or whatnot, they only knew agents that controlled them to be other humans. So I think that, it's just a kind of a natural thing. So like made in the image of God, I think they were being quite literal in that God looks human, and I think that derives from like the earlier religions and how they viewed gods in general.
Huh. Oh, okay. That's fascinating. I never really thought about it like that. Okay, so it's more just that, like that we were created and we're created by gods that are just like us, and so that's why we matter, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes more sense. But it's like, it's funny that the way you explained it was better than I've ever heard anybody explain it. That's a Christian. They're like, because of the image. What do you mean? Like that's what gives people values if they look like God. I don't know what you want. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, Christians, they're I don't know. They they have so many different ways of trying to get around the whole image of God thing, and they get like super deep and philosophical, and I just find it helpful to sort of try to put yourself in the shoes of ancient people and how they thought about gods. And if you put it into that context, I think that it's rather simple to see like why they give certain attributes to gods. Like why are all the gods, like ancient gods including Yahweh, why are they such dicks all the time? And I mean, it's because that's what people knew. People knew rulers to be dicks, to be horrible people in general. And so like that's the only reference point that they have.
Right. What? No. Okay. Sorry, he's asking if I fed the dog. I'm like, no, I haven't fed the dog. Yeah. Okay. Oh, and okay, that's in it, because I got a book and now I can't think of the name of it. I think it was called God and Anatomy.
Oh
And
yeah.
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think that's from Francesca Stavropoulou, right?
Yep, very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of going over like how people used to, picture what gods were like, because they weren't. It seems like the Old Testament gods back then like weren't. They didn't get all the omnis and stuff, right? But
Hmm.
yeah, it was kind of just like you were saying, they're just dicks. They're just powerful. They're like, hey, all the people that we've seen with power are dicks. And so
Hmm.
that's what gods would be like, right? They would have even more power. So they'd probably be even more like dicks. Right. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I never thought of it like that, honestly, when reading the Bible before, obviously, but there's parts where it says that God made mistakes. He regretted stuff. He didn't,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? So it's kind of odd the way it works like that.
Yeah, and I've actually asked modern Jewish believers what they think about their God, and it's like, yeah, our God can be a dick. Like they don't think that God is perfect in that sense. And the whole triomni thing came in with Christianity. So it wasn't until then that they thought, oh, God is perfect.
Right. It's like all about. Well, wasn't the original argument for if God is all powerful and all knowing and what all loving, then
Mhm.
these cancel each other out basically. But it was for like previous gods, right? Like it was Greek gods, or if I'm not mistaken, what was it, Greek gods or Roman gods? I can't remember. But it was like an earlier god, and there was like they were pointing out that contradiction in like completely different set of gods.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that the triomni version of God that exists now in Christianity is very contradictory, and there's several different ways. Like, if God is all knowing, then He should know a way to accomplish whatever task He wants to, without causing unnecessary suffering. So, like for a triomni God, the problem of suffering, I would say, is probably one of the best arguments against that particular version of God, just because it highlights the issues with a triomni God. And like if God's all powerful, then why is he limited by what humans would accept? Because like that's one thing that a lot of Christians say is that, well, God was limited to the time and place that He was in, or that he made laws that the Israelite people would follow. that doesn't make a lot of sense because one, the Israelites didn't even follow those rules that they claim are the rules that God pared himself down to so that they would follow them. They didn't even follow those rules for one. So it doesn't make sense that he should like cater like whatever rules he's going to make for the Israelite people, you know, to what they would accept, because they already didn't accept it. They already didn't follow it. So like God, if God is unlimited in power and unlimited, you know, in how he can command his chosen people, then he really shouldn't have needed to like change like, you know, the rules that he made. And because he didn't need to change the rules that he made, that means that he very deliberately allows sexual slavery, chattel slavery, like just all of the different kinds of slavery. He ends up allowing them because he thought that they were good. And so you, like, as a Christian, you got to come to terms with that. You got to come to terms with the fact that your God thinks that it's perfectly fine to own another person as property, especially women. Just women in general can be owned as property, you know, to God.
Wow, that's insane. Yeah, I mean, and I've seen a lot of these conversations about that stuff, like with Frank Turk, right? Like, I feel like he's the main one that always comes up. And he'll always like go into this like, well, what is your standard, right? And in my mind, I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like, I feel like anybody could answer that question, be like, it doesn't matter. You name the standard, God broke it, so it doesn't. You know what I mean? Who cares? Like, by any standard you could possibly come up with, you know, that is somehow consistent internally, he breaks all of them. If you know, behavior has anything to do with it, then yeah, God's broken every version. Yeah, right, exactly. Break his own God, you know, God's own standard. He breaks it. Yeah, it just
Right.
doesn't make sense. Like, but I guess is there supposed to be some kind of like outside standard that's like, oh no, that you know, makes everything different? Like gods have to follow. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. I'm even trying to do him a favor and be like, maybe there's some extra like level of God like standards that are outside of the whatever. No, there's not. There's no way to make it work.
Yeah.
But hey, I wanted to ask you too a couple of things. Have you talked with was it Carrier? Were you talking to him recently?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I talk to him not on a daily basis, but I mean, I talk to him rather frequently. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know why. What have you
No, I
heard?
was just going to go into the mythicism thing. I'm just fascinated by that conversation, and he seems to be one of the few. Well, not few, because like David Fitzgerald's up in there too. I think because of mythicist as well, right?
Oh yeah, he is.
Right. Is there like, would you point to anybody beyond that as far as like scholars go?
Well, there's let's see, there's a Raphael Lataster. He's a little bit kooky on the social subjects, but he's got a book out too for it. But you know, I mean, Carrier's books, Fitzgerald's books, those are probably going to be the best ones. There's also the Jesus puzzle. Jesus puzzle. Jesus, it's a book called the Jesus puzzle. I'm blanking on the name of the author right now. He was the one that Carrier initially read and thought that he could do like a really good book on it. Hold on, it's right here. The Jesus puzzle. Oh no, that's the wrong one. I can't. If I find it.
You
Oh
found
wait,
a
Earl
Christian book.
Doherty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry, Earl Doherty. Earl Doherty right now is the one that I'm thinking of. He's got the Jesus puzzle, and that's kind of like a preliminary thing for Carrier's book. So that's
Okay.
a good one too.
All right, cool. Because yeah, I've got Nailed, and then Mything in Action, and then I got Carriers as well. I think the what Jesus, if Jesus didn't exist, or the wait, I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was this book on mythicism. Jesus something. But yeah, and those are the only ones I had heard of. So thank you. Okay, Earl Doherty.
Yeah. So I guess maybe you're talking about Mything in Action.
Mything in Action. Well, that was David Fitzgerald's, correct? Or is that
Yes, that's
okay.
David Fitzgerald's book. Is the
What's
Mything in Action book.
what's the name of Carriers? It was like the
So yeah, so Carrier's got a few books out. Carrier has uh Jesus from Outer Space. That one actually just came out on audiobook too, and it's actually my wife that does the audio for it.
No
Um
shit. Wow, that's
yeah,
cool. Hell yeah,
yeah,
that's awesome. I'll have to check that
yeah.
out. That's wild.
But there's Jesus from Outer Space, and then there's On the Historicity of Jesus. And then apparently Carrier's going to be having like another book come out on the topic of mythicism this year. I think he's having it out this year, or it might be early next year. I'm not sure yet, but we're slated to do the audio on that one too.
Oh no shit. Hell yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah. And then there's also Proving History. That's a good book to read. That's all about the historical method and the best way to, I guess, do the historical method, like when it comes to Jesus and all that. And then he's also got Not the Impossible Faith. That's a really good book because that's not really attacking the historicity of Jesus. It's more or less attacking the idea that, Jesus resurrecting from the dead is the only way to explain Christianity, like a literal historical resurrection. So that's been a really good book to read. But yeah, so those are the main books from Carrier that I would suggest anybody reading, as far as like mythicism goes.
Hell yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah,
And I've yet to come across anybody that can make a coherent like historicist argument for for Jesus. So I'm still trying to find somebody to make a good argument for that.
so that one book, it like walks you through like exactly what kind of like methods are used to come to conclusions about history, like period, or is it just in the case of Jesus? It's just sort of like full all the way
Well, I mean, it focuses on the Jesus question because that's like one of the harder questions, but it definitely lays out like a really good foundation for just, Bayesian reasoning as far as history goes. It teaches you like how to apply the Bayesian analysis to the evidence, and basically asserts a more evidence-based approach rather than, I guess, like a philosophical approach to history.
Okay. So more because I've always wondered about that. Like, how do we determine stuff? Because, like, especially like nowadays, right? Like, it gets quite confusing because if we're looking at, let's just say, like today, this day and age, if we were talking about the election in 2020,
Hmm.
you're going to have people that are finding evidence or what they think is evidence that there was fraud and all this stuff, right? And
Hmm.
if that gets recorded in history, somewhere or that's there somewhere, you're going to have people trying to record history and say that that was what happened. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
there's people that believe that, right? But that's so I'm always interested in like how, like, because back in the day there was less evidence available, right? And people could have been wrong a lot. I'm sure they were. And so, how do we figure out who was right and who was wrong when we're looking at people back in the day who may have thought something happened that didn't, or vice versa?
Yeah, I mean that's a really good question. I mean, and that's basically the question that the proving history covers. And I guess just a simple way to put it is that first you got to correctly contextualize what claim you're talking about. So like if it's a mundane natural claim, then you're going to have a lower threshold for your evidence than you would like a magical claim, like the Jesus claim, like especially Jesus's resurrection. So you have a monumental standard of evidence that you have to meet in order to prove that that actually happened. Now, as far as like Jesus goes, like as a human person existing, there are a lot of things that work against it, like putting Jesus in the correct class. So like Jesus would be part of this savior deity sort of class in the mystery cults in the Mediterranean area at that time. And what really kind of hurts the whole Jesus story is that he matches up with these mystery cults like pretty well, to the point where like even Paul, the Apostle Paul, uses a lot of the mystery cult language in his epistles. And so like when
Oh, my bad. I didn't realize. Okay, we got a call.
oh we've got a call. Okay, I'll
Okay,
shut
cool.
up. I'd rather talk
No,
to
that's
whoever's
fine.
calling.
I didn't realize. I just looked over like, oh, we have the thing. I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. We got John from Canada. It said God is the most benevolent being in the universe. Let's
Shit.
take. Well, yeah, that's interesting. Let's, what's going on, man? John, how we doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Pretty good. Hang it in there.
Doing great.
I'm doing well. Enjoying your Sunday?
I am.
Yeah. So what's your evidence for this benevolent God thing?
Well, the fact that we all exist. Plus, it was God that compelled the Christians to end slavery, both in the Bible and in the Americas. Hence the Civil
Okay,
War.
so hold on. Just real quick, God did not end slavery in the Bible. God actually stated that you should go and take slaves from the nations around you. So God did not end slavery in the Bible. Also, your claim that God compelled Christians to end the transatlantic slave trade here in America, that's not even true either, because there were Christians on both sides of that were arguing for their respective wants and needs. So like God didn't compel anybody to do anything, especially not in the Bible.
Actually, you're wrong. It was God who freed the slaves from Egypt, and Abraham Lincoln and the Union were all Christians.
Do you got a Bible with you?
I don't need a Bible. I know the truth.
You don't need a Bible. You know the truth. So just fuck evidence is what you're saying right now. You're just throwing evidence out the window. Like you don't.
The evidence is you. The evidence is you being free, living in the very country you're living in. Speak to me.
How is that proof of God?
Because God gave you life, bull. Sorry.
No, he didn't. You need to be able. You can't just ad hoc tell me, "Oh, God's the reason why you're breathing right now." What is the magical component to me being able to breathe or me living? Like what? How can I know that this is true as opposed to you just pulling something out of your ass?
Because something had to create the universe. It didn't just happen by accident. Plus, I have faith in the Bible.
Well, no. Hold on. You don't have faith in the Bible. You threw the Bible out, remember? You said that you don't need the Bible.
I've read the Bible. I've been reading the Bible for a while now, so I know it.
Oh, okay. Do you have a Bible with you?
Okay, hold on.
No. Answer my question. Do you have a Bible with you?
Oh, he went to get it. I think he went to get it. It's like,
okay.
I think that's what he would do.
Go get it.
I do now.
Okay, so you got it.
Okay, good. I want you to turn to Leviticus 25 and start at 44 and read through 46. Huh?
Leviticus 25? Is that where we're going?
Yes.
Is that
Leviticus? That's Old Testament. Not starting off on a good foot here.
Hold on.
I know that one. I know that answer to that. It's Old Testament. You say 25?
Yep, 25, and go to 44.
There it is. I must have already looked this up. It's already pulled up.
Don't worry, I'm gonna get there.
Okay.
He's using the old school kind with the pages, probably.
Yeah, I mean, I look. Okay.
Leviticus 1:12. Okay, where are we going?
Leviticus 25.
Leviticus 25.
2, 5, 25.
Okay, Leviticus 25. And which
All
verse?
right, go to 44.
25, 44? That's where we're going?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, go to 44.
Okay, I'm still following you.
Okay, and I want you to read right now to me
I'm
out of your Bible 44 through 46.
I'm not there. I said I'm not there yet.
It's okay.
Oh.
That's
I
all right.
found
Take it. You okay? You can get there.
Now I'm here. Okay, I'm here. I found it.
All right. Now I want you to read to us 44 through 46.
If you need slaves, you may buy them from the nations around you. You may also buy the children of the foreigners who are living among you. Such children born in your land may become your property, and you may leave them as an inheritance to your sons, whom they must serve as long as they live. But you must not treat any of your fellow Israelites harshly. I just read it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
That's slavery. God is mandating slavery.
Their property. The people
I
are
see.
property.
That's
Yeah.
very enlightening.
Huh?
You didn't know that verse?
Is this what got you off Christianity?
No. I'm just to recap here on the conversation. You came in saying that God is the one that compelled the Christians to abolish the slavery in the Old Testament and in the antebellum South. It's very clear here, in at least in the Old Testament, to just attack the very first half of your claim here, that God mandated the taking of slaves. And this isn't the only case. Like if you were to find somewhere in your Bible Numbers 31, it directly has God compelling and commanding the Israelites to kill small children and then kidnap pubescent girls in order to rape them into marriage. And
Why exactly did it say that?
It says it in Numbers 31, 17 to 18. And there is no concept, there is no modern concept of marriage in the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, rape was marriage.
Rape was marriage? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
No,
rape is
not
marriage in the Old Testament.
How can rape be marriage? How is that possible?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you one of the dumbasses out there that thinks that marital rape isn't a thing?
Marital rape? Well, in order for rape to happen, one person consents, but the other person doesn't. And don't call me a dumbass.
Well, right. Well, no. I mean, if you're going to say dumb shit, I'm going to call an apple an apple. No. So in the Bible, there's no concept of marriage as we understand it today. The concept of marriage, whenever they say marry, that what they mean is they take them. And when they take them, that means that they have sex with them. Now, if your entire village was just slaughtered, women, children, men, all of them slaughtered, and then the girls were forcibly taken from their homes and then forced into quote unquote marriage, which is sex with the Israelite men, that's rape.
Oh, thanks for that clarification.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Okay.
Do you agree that God mandated rape?
I agree that rape is a terrible thing.
Oh, well, your God doesn't have a problem with it. So why do you have a problem with it?
Because it's wrong.
God doesn't think it's wrong.
Well, gentlemen, without God, you can't have a notion of right and wrong.
No. I can totally have a notion of right and wrong, but both Brentley and I here, we can come to moral conclusions about different, actions. That doesn't require God, but also your God specifically said, hey, go and kill all these little kids in this town, take the pubescent girls so that you can force them into marriages, which is sexual slavery. But also what I want you to do is take one out of every 500 of those girls, and I want you to sacrifice them as a burnt offering. So do you think that burning girls is like burning girls to a crisp for God to smell? Do you think that that's a good thing?
God doesn't sell people.
Yeah,
People.
God. No. God directly told them, like it says, like in Numbers 31, verse 25, I believe it is. It says, and the God said unto Moses, do this thing. And that thing is take one out of every 500 of those pubescent girls that they took from that town where they slaughtered all of the people in the town except for the girls. Take one out of every 500 of them and sacrifice them to God.
I see. Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Old Testament, man. You gotta.
So let me ask you this real quick there, bud. Would you ever, if you were in command of an entire nation of people, would you ever command them to go into the next country over, slaughter all the men, women, children, babies, all that, but keep alive all of the pubescent girls, force them into marriages in our country, and then also sacrifice one out of every 500 of them? Would you give that directive?
No, never.
Okay, you're more moral than your own God.
Wow, I take that as a compliment.
You should.
It's a pretty low bar, but it's cool. I guess.
But keep in mind that the United States is the only industrialized nation to fight a civil war to end slavery. What do you think caused that?
Well, I mean, sorry, you go ahead, Brentley. I've been
Oh,
kind
no.
of monopolizing.
No, I was just gonna ask, have you read the secession speeches, man? Do you know why they wanted to secede? They mention God a lot when they're talking about having the right to own slaves in the secession speeches.
Who was saying that? Who on earth was saying that?
The southern states that wanted to secede from the Union.
So they were saying God as a reason to keep slavery in place.
Yeah, well, they were both using God. Both sides of that conversation were using God. The problem is the people that actually had the better argument, if you're pointing to the Bible, were the people that wanted to own slaves, because that's what's actually in the Bible.
How did they have the bigger argument?
If we're using the Bible, they had the better argument in the sense that if we're using the Bible as the basis, the Bible actually says, like you just read, that slavery was okay. I mean, it's actually sanctioned. They were told to do it.
Oh,
The people,
okay.
the other people on the other side of that coin, the Christians on the other side.
So you're telling me the Bible? So you're telling me the Bible was an instruction manual for slavery, direct from the source?
I mean, that wasn't its primary use, but I mean, it definitely has like an instruction booklet as to what is ordained by God to be okay for slavery. Like they couldn't outright enslave their fellow Israelite in the same way that they could enslave a foreigner.
Well, isn't that a good thing not to enslave Israelites?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Define good. I mean,
Isn't it a good thing not to enslave Israelites? Isn't that a good thing?
That's an incredibly low bar, and you're pivoting away from the actual problem, and that's that, there's no good reason whatsoever to ever enslave someone.
I totally agree.
Then you disagree with your God.
I can't disagree with God. He owns me.
Okay. Well, we can unpack that toxic little lunchbox here in a minute, but no. So you definitely do disagree with your God. I've laid out several different ways in which you disagree with your God. We talked about how you wouldn't order an entire nation to go and force little girls into sexual slavery, nor would you toss them on bonfires so that God could smell their sweet savors. There's that way. There's the way in that you agree with us that there's no good reason to enslave another person. Those two things right there make you morally better than your own God, and it means that you disagree with your God. So, I mean, you can't hold both of those positions. These are literally contradictory.
Okay, I see. Well, I guess the conversation is over.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I didn't mean to shut down the conversation, but I'm just trying to point out that you definitely do disagree with your God. But I mean, if you don't want to, there's a lot more things to unpack. If you wanted to, we could change subjects, or we can let you go. It's up to you.
Okay, well, I just want to ask one question. You guys seem so hell bent on criticizing the God in the Old Testament, the transatlantic slave trade. But are you aware of the fact that slavery is happening right now as we speak? It's like a multi-million-dollar business.
Are you talking about the prison system?
Well, slavery in general. You are aware of human trafficking, right?
I mean, I am aware of human trafficking, but I'm just trying to get a sense in what way you're talking about it, because there is human trafficking, but also there's a good case to be made about the poor conditions of our prison system in America. I don't know what it's like in Canada, but I mean, yeah, there's human trafficking now, but I don't see how that I don't see how that helps like our conversation here, because like, yeah, the human trafficking has occurred and seems to have always occurred in one form or another. It's still bad and horrible.
Well, why aren't you upset about that, or about the, as you say, for
I
slavery?
am upset about that.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you spend more time about that? Why don't you spend more time arguing about that rather than slavery that happened a long time ago?
I really hate this argument right here, because it's like, oh, well, why don't you criticize this particular topic instead of that particular topic? We're here to talk about God, and we're here to talk about why you believe in God and why you think God is all benevolent and everything like that. If you wanted to talk about like
something had to create the universe. It didn't just happen by itself.
that's not true. I mean, there are plenty of things that quote unquote happen by themselves, and typically we call that just natural processes, like them happening by themselves. And natural processes operate in an energy exchange, so it's really just an exchange of energy that's happening, and then there's causes and effects of that energy transferring and changing in our environment. So like that doesn't require any kind of magical magician or anything like that. It doesn't require anything. So like when you say, oh, it just doesn't create itself, you're not actually talking about anything that makes sense scientifically, but also you're not considering the fact that we have natural explanations for these things. And if we have a natural explanation, we don't need a magical one.
Okay, but if you ever consider it's possible? Okay, look, I know that science considers the Big Bang the origin of the universe. But you ever considered that maybe God may start the Big Bang and maybe guided evolution?
I mean, yeah, sure. God could have done that, but then you would need to provide the evidence to bridge that gap between natural processes and God. So like where in natural processes does it require a magician to operate nature?
No, I never thought about that.
Because you'd have to demonstrate an actual causal link from the thing that happened to the thing that caused it, the God, right?
So okay, so if it's all wrong, then that means that all the people who lived and died for nothing.
Yeah, it sucks.
I mean, you say died for nothing. Like, why does every, like, as far as like in the history of organisms and everything like that, why does death have to have some kind of like transcendental meaning to it? Like, I mean, people live and die all of the time. That doesn't mean that they have to die for any particular reason or another, like whether it be noble or just a mundane reason for death. Like, I guess I don't understand your specific criticism here as far as them dying for nothing.
I see.
Did you say that they died for God? The people that died for God? Because that's what I thought it was. So you're saying just anybody dies for no reason?
I have one last question. if God were proven if God was standing right in front of you, would you believe him? Or you would believe, but would you worship him or serve him?
Fuck no.
I don't worship stuff, man. That's weird.
I would not worship God, especially if your God was the one that was proven to be actually real, because I feel like your God is a bloodthirsty, genocidal child killer. So, no, I'm not going to worship a bloodthirsty, genocidal child killer. I'm better than that son of a bitch.
Even if he could kill you.
Even if he could kill me, there's no way that I would worship him, even if he had a gun to my head and he was like, worship me or die right now. Huh?
No, it doesn't matter. Continue.
I'm just saying, like, I don't worship things, so I'm not going to worship anybody.
You mean there's absolutely nothing that you worship?
No, I don't worship anything.
Okay. Well, have a nice conversation. Thank you for the conversation. Have a good evening.
Okay.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Brentley, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to dominate the call or anything like that.
No, that was cool. I was glad the way that you directed it back to the Bible and stuff. That was great. Yeah, I wouldn't have known, like, because it was just going with just benevolent. That God is a benevolent God. That was the perfect direction to go. So, no, you're good.
Mhm.
That's funny. It's wild, those kinds of conversations when they don't know what like what the Bible says. That's fast. But to be totally honest, I didn't know that. It took when I heard there was this song it was Propaganda, and they had this song called Fuck Religion, and I remember it came on in one of my mixes, and there was like all these things that came up, and it was like it advocates for slavery, for sex slavery, and I was like, no, and of course in my mind at the time I was like, they must be talking about Muslims. That's what it is. It's got to be, because that's that's a religion, I guess. But no, the Christian Bible does advocate for both of those, but my brain just didn't want to accept it. So, and then I looked it up and was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard, when you've, you think of this God as such a great and benevolent, person. It's hard to wrap your mind around, some of these verses, because these verses are not taught in churches. Like they don't spend sermons where they preach about it. Well, sometimes they do, yeah, but I mean, they get in a lot of like trouble when they start preaching about, like how interracial marriage is a bad thing. I actually, the first time my channel ever got taken down was because I put up an uncut sermon of a guy that was making the biblical case against interracial marriage, and it got it went everywhere. It went viral. This whole thing.
Jesus, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's hard to wrap your mind around that. And these a lot of the church people are like pastors and priests and everything. They're not going to teach those things. They're not going to teach those verses, or they'll teach you how to get around those verses.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, because like the one thing, and I don't know if all Calvary chapels do this, but the Calvary chapel I went to, they were very specific about reading like through the whole Bible, like part by part. They didn't do like where they're jumping all over the place or whatever. That kind of prided themselves on that. And I remember, I mean, they would, but they were also good anyway. But they would go back and get the context and shit, or whatever. But I remember doing the Old Testament parts, and they would do that thing where they would be like, now it says this, but they were bad. They were evil. Like they were sacrificing kids and stuff to God. So, they would do this whole like rationalizing around it as they're like saying it, or they just say that it doesn't mean what it says. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
A lot of times, but
I mean, and that really gets me whenever they start talking, well, I get that that's what the words say, but that's not what was meant. Like, I'm sorry, I'm just literally reading the words off the page here. Like, are you seriously telling me that the words put in this configuration while they say the horrible thing, they don't actually mean the horrible thing? That's going to be a tough sell. Like, kill all the little ones. Well, God just means tickle them. or some kind of bullshit. Like, no,
Literally.
that's not what it. God did. You're telling me God didn't mean to literally kill all of the small children, even the boys. Like, it specifically says that in 1 Samuel 15, like 1-3. It lays out everybody that should be killed, and it includes the young and the old, like children, infants, and babies, and all this other stuff. Like, it really gets me when they do those things, when they're like, oh, it doesn't actually mean that at
Yeah.
all. It's like, oh, but so you're telling me that God directly saying kill this little fucking kid doesn't mean kill this little fucking kid? Like, I'm sorry, I can't get past that.
That's so frustrating. And it's like, it's not just, I mean, and I was going to say, like, if I, were to put my Christian hat on back, what I would have said back then, I would probably said, but that's the Old Testament. That guy was fucking weird. I don't know, man. Like, that's why Jesus had to, that's why he had to sacrifice himself.
That's an interesting way to go about it. And typically, whenever that comes up in a conversation, I try to figure out what their theology actually is. And so, like, I would then probably ask, like, okay, do you consider Jesus to be God? And if they say yes, Jesus is God, okay, is God and Jesus by extension the same in the past as he is in the present as he will be in the future? Like, is he consistent? He never changes. And typically they'll be like, yeah, he never changes. Okay, then the God, Jesus, that you're talking about is the same God of the Old Testament, which makes Jesus also the one that slaughtered all of the firstborn children of Egypt. Is that a good? Would you ever, go in and slaughter all the firstborn children just because some asshole wouldn't do what you wanted him to? Oh, keep in mind, you specifically crafted the situation so that he would not do the thing that you wanted him to do, so that you could kill all the firstborn children. Are you that kind of psychopath? And, like, obviously, it's going to be a no.
Right. And you're right, because that does, and I remember that confusing me like so badly when I would say the Old Testament God was different. There was a different thing going on. But then you get to that verse that you just mentioned where it's like God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, which would be Jesus. And how do you square that circle? I remember messing with me quite a bit. And you're like, I have no idea how to answer this question. It's just like,
Yeah.
Because the Bible doesn't make sense. Shit, I don't know. That seems to be about all there is. But yeah, I remember with the ones that got me to with the saying that it doesn't say what it says was the part where he says, like, you gotta hate your mom and your dad or whatever, and everybody will be like, it doesn't mean that. Jesus, he was kidding. Okay, he was just it's a comparative thing. Really, he didn't mean it like that. But it really seemed like a cult leader thing, right? Whereas, like, look, if they tell you to stop following me, then you need to hate them, because that seems like what it might have been. I don't know. What's your take on that?
Well, obviously, I get what. So, like, it literally saying that is a thing, but, like, I typically try to take it in context, and in context, basically, Jesus is basically saying, like, oh, your earthly family, like your mother, your father, a son, and all that, like, those relationships don't matter. I've come here for to collect people, for them to follow me, and for me to be their family. And through Jesus, like, you get all of these other family members. And so, I mean, I still think that it's a powerful verse to use, because it's very obvious that Jesus came to drive families apart so that they would follow him and become part of his family, right? And through his sacrifice, like, they gain this familial relationship. So, I mean, it still means the thing that he says, but oftentimes they want to act like, oh, well, it's a metaphor for something, and so it doesn't literally mean hate your father. But it's like, if your father doesn't want to also follow Jesus, then yes, it definitely means he wants you to hate your father, to, like, not have that familial connection with your father, because it doesn't matter anymore. So, like, I mean, it still says the thing that it says, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. You're being much more what's the word? kind with your interpretation. No, that's good. Okay, so we do have Rain here. Rain is an atheist, so why people can actually believe a book, the Bible, that is obviously contradictory. So
Okay.
let's bring Rain in. What's up, Rain? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you guys hear me?
Yep, I got you.
Hell yeah.
Awesome. So I know this is like off topic, but just for Brentley, I want to say this is a Punk Metal Towel from chat, by the way. Just random fact.
Oh no shit. Hell yeah. What's up, man? It's cool to talk to
Not
you.
much, man. How about you guys?
Good. Hanging in there.
Doing all
man.
right.
So I'm just kind of wondering, like, in your guys' opinion, and if maybe there's any good like research that you guys could direct me to, how anybody could believe in a book that has so many obvious contradictories, or contradictions rather. It kind of boggles my mind, really.
Do you want me to go first, Brentley?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I'll follow up.
I think that a lot of people can compartmentalize pretty well. And so, like, typically when we talk about compartmentalization, we're talking about, like, you know, obviously smart people that believe in obviously ridiculous things. They can compartmentalize their faith, you know, from their more analytical and logical side of their brain so that they can believe in these, you know, illogical things, while at the same time maintaining a rather smart attitude towards most other things. So that's typically what we're talking about when we talk about compartmentalization. But I think that, you know, at some level you have to sort of compartmentalize even in your own faith to only focus on like the things that are not contradictory. And so, like, if there is something that's contradictory, that's compartmentalized or completely separate. They don't ever think to connect the dots there, right? And I think that that's kind of what it gets to, because I know for me at least that's what it was. Like in my own faith, like I never crossed the streams, as it were, in that particular respect. Like if I believed in one thing and that's contradictory to this other thing, but I never thought about those two things in contrast to each other. And I think that that's just like one of the things that pastors and priests and apologists in general, that's one thing that they do, is they subvertly teach their audience to compartmentalize these different aspects, and they don't ever like compare and contrast these contradictions. And so and they don't want to, because then you know you'll start to realize how many contradictions there are, not only in like the historical narratives of the Bible, but also the theological tenets of the Bible. I think that, you know, if they were to start doing that, they would definitely start losing a lot of congregants, because I mean, who's going to sit there and be like, well, yeah, this thing, but that contradicts this thing over here. I am being told to believe both, but why? Like, I just feel like compartmentalization is probably the reason why there.
Yeah, I would probably say the same, like about the same thing. I mean, the motivated reasoning is a powerful thing. It's a hell of a drug, really. And you know, if you have a situation where it's like it behooves you to not pay attention to that contradiction because your like community and stuff relies on you not paying attention to it, you're going to kind of like weigh those things in your mind without really noticing that that's what you're doing. But you know what I mean? Like, so I mean, but is there a particular because I was gonna say, like, I could probably tell you what the rationalization is for a particular contradiction. Did you have one in mind? Because I could probably tell you what I would have said before, because I thought about this stuff a lot and it got me pretzel brained all the time, but I had a lot of like rationalizations around this sort of thing.
So one that kind of sticks out in my mind out of the literally tons of them, is the fact that, you know, God is supposed to be inerrant. However, you know, he really kind of regretted his supposed creation, killed them. And there's another contradiction even within that of, oh, he's supposed to love the children so much, and woe be unto you if you know, harm them, and this, that, and the other. But yet he harmed them with the flood, the supposed flood. But the inerrant, infallible God that not only had to destroy his own creation because he he was pissed off at it. That's just such a blatant contradiction. But then, you know, people also say like, well, you have the Old Testament and then the New Testament was the new rule. Why did a perfect God have to set down new rules? Things like that just seem like they could really stick out and be a huge red flag.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, so it's almost like the him changing his mind a bunch of times was a big one for me too. I think at the time though, you know what I would have probably pointed to now I think about it is I had this weird understanding of free will, and it almost was something that like God couldn't figure out or something. Like it was something that was like the only thing that was sort of outside of his all knowingness was what we're gonna do. You know what I mean? That's how I got around it, but. Again, I had kind of an esoteric way of getting out of that one. Just go like it's free will, because that was always the explanation I was given. So I had to come up with something like, okay, I guess free will is just sort of the snowball thing that God created. He's like, oh, geez, now it's too big. I can't figure out what's going on, and it was like outside of his control. But you know, and that's why you had to keep starting over and be like, hold on, I like the free will stuff, but let me hold on. It's that one didn't work because then the angels started having sex with the women, so we got to start. Hold on, we got to start again. Now they're having giants all over the place. We got to start this thing over, you know. And so, but yeah, I always thought it was like a free will thing, but that would have been my rationalization, even though that doesn't really make sense because God would know what you're going to choose.
Yeah, I've always questioned that particular story too, and the response that I've gotten from people has been that like God was basically just playing stupid. Like he actually knew, but he was just playing stupid. Wow. And yeah, like that never sat well with me. But like when I was and I only thought about these things critically after I left religion. So like before I left religion, like I just didn't even cross those streams right there, like thinking about God being everywhere and knowing everything, but yet this thing he didn't know, like that never really occurred to me. It wasn't until after I left the faith that I was like, that is kind of a weird fucking thing right there.
Right. Yeah. I never even noticed the part where he said I regretted making it, making people or whatever until after I deconstructed and everything. Went back. I was like, oh my gosh, yep, it's right there. Yeah. How do you regret stuff if you know everything? That just doesn't make sense. You would have regretted it before you did it and then didn't do it. That's how that would have worked if you'd known everything,
Yeah, exactly. If I may ask John, because that's the first time I've ever heard that theory, just to kind of elaborate, like in that theory that those people have, what would God gain from pretending to be stupid?
It was like sort of like a test for humans or something like that. Like he was basically like, playing dumb for the benefit of humans or something like that. Like he was giving humans a chance to not be shitty or something. It was something along those lines. So like when God is in the Garden of Eden and he's like, he doesn't know where Adam and Eve are, like he's playing dumb so that they can make the free will choice to like reveal themselves or something, some kind of bullshit like that. So like I don't know, it never really set right for me. And maybe I don't mean to straw man that position, like that's what I remember of it. So if I could be remembering it wrong. I'm sure somebody in the comments will correct me.
That sounds about right to me, honestly. That's oh, it's a test. It was, because it's always a test or a bless. That's it. That's one of those two things. Jeez, that's funny. Because I was thinking too, like the story of Abraham and Isaac, right? Where he's like, just kidding at the last second, and it was like, oh, I was just trying to see if if you would actually do it. And then I stopped you or whatever. But it's like a test. Because God's insane.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but I mean, that was the only thing I could really think of. So I definitely thank you guys for taking the call. This was awesome. I've never called into a call-in show before like this. I watched The Line a lot, and I always thought it would be cool to call into something like this. So, and I mean, I'm definitely glad I did because, like I said, I've never heard that theory that John said he was presented with until now, and that was kind of an interesting theory. Definitely.
Yeah, it caught me off guard the first time I heard it too. I'm like, how does that make sense? Like, why would God play stupid?
Like,
But I
yeah.
mean, so if you take it into context, like the context that the Old Testament was written in and what they thought about God, they like the whole all knowing thing is a new like is a newer invention of Christians and not of the Jews. The Jews didn't think of God as being like omnipresent and all knowing. The Yahweh had very human characteristics, you know, in the Old Testament, and they thought about God in very human ways. And so, like, humans aren't all knowing and aren't all powerful and all this other stuff. So, like they didn't like they consider God powerful, but like all knowing and all powerful, like that was just not something that was blatant, I guess, in their theology. It was definitely something that was developed later.
Yeah, and the funny thing about that is, I actually not too long ago. So I'm a retail manager, and I'm lucky enough that the other three managers that I work with are also atheists, and we were talking about, how we basically kind of saw like the Bible as a human being's best attempt to explain the world pre-science, and it's just a random fact that what you said reminded me of. But I don't know. I tend to go off on random shit sometimes.
Same.
Oh yeah. No, I was just thinking. I was reading in the thing. It's on Job, right? And there was the part in Job. And I was talking to Michael Wiseman before he does the Bible Says What podcast, and one of the things that he said, and I never put this together, but one of the parts of the Job story, apparently God, and I can't remember the verse he said, but he said God basically says, "Oh man, you tricked me into hurting this innocent person." Right. And he's saying like the like when he was having that conversation with the devil, that he's like, man, you caused me to hurt this person that didn't do anything wrong, but you got me to do it and you tricked me. And it's just kind of odd because it's like when you think of God in terms of like what we're talking about here now, is that like back then it was not this omni knowing, all knowing, all loving, all powerful, whatever God. It was just a type of a powerful dude or whatever. And so that would make sense in the story. But now it wouldn't make sense, and they kind of have to rationalize around that part.
Yeah, and I mean that's just yet another really good example of contradictions. I mean, like, the book basically tells us like, oh, God's in control, he's the one we should be worried about, but yet, Satan has all these gotcha bitch moments where he gets the best of them, and it's like I don't know, it's just so strange to me. But I think I kind of have a better understanding, but it's just one of those things like I'm definitely just gonna have to sit with for a while, and I don't know. I may never figure it out before I die, but who knows? But
A great book
Yeah.
on contradictions also is Jesus Interrupted by Bart Ehrman. Just all
okay,
the textual, or right, it's all the differences between the gospels that are unreconcilable. So it's kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
okay. Yeah, I definitely thank you guys for the time and the recommendation, and hopefully the show goes well for you guys.
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much for calling in.
Thanks, man. It's good talking to you.
Not a problem. Have a great night.
Take it easy, dude. Yeah, that is interesting. Just the way that I think, the contradictions too are like stuff that did kind of mess with. I didn't realize that there was such stark differences between the gospels. I kind of
Hmm.
thought, right, and I remember, I can't remember what it was. It was like a video. It was when I was still a Christian, and it was like how many, what was it? How many angels were at the tomb, and it was like one, two, or none, right? And of course, the answer was all three because there's
Hmm.
one with none, there's one with one, and one with two. And I was just like, what? That can't be right. Like they can't mess something up that's that specific, right? Like why would you have why would you have it in there if it's that, you know what I mean? Like if it's just strange.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's because each gospel is written to be like a superseding document from the previous gospels that were written. So, like, they were never meant to like coincide with each other. They were disagreeing with each other. And so that's why the differences are there. What's crazy is when you hear apologists try to say like, oh, they were just telling it from different perspectives. It's like, no, I mean, there's nobody there, and there's two dudes there in white robes, and they're telling us in really weird voices that Jesus is not here. Like, those are two very different experiences and are not just a difference of perspective.
Right. Yeah. That's real weird that I didn't realize that they were like trying to argue different things, but that makes sense because wasn't one where it was like Jesus follows the law like specifically the whole time, and then another one he doesn't. He's kind of like breaking the law, as it were, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, one of the more blatant, I guess, examples would be the Lazarus story. Did you know that there are two completely different Lazaruses in the Gospels?
What? No. Okay. No,
Yeah.
I
So,
didn't.
yeah, Luke has a Lazarus story that's actually a parable that has Lazarus dying and like going to hell, and then he looks up into heaven and he sees like his brother or friend or something like that nuzzled up against Abraham, I believe it is, and like the entire point of the story is that no matter how many miracles that are done or anything like that, it's not going to make people believe, right? Well, turn around in John, he literally puts Lazarus in the story as like somebody who dies, and Jesus resurrects, and through that miracle, that resurrection, many people just immediately start believing. So it's a rewrite of this Lazarus parable from Luke. He's basically turning the entire narrative on its head and saying, well, no. Actually, he was literally a person that died, and Jesus brought them back to life. And through that miracle, many people were saved, instead of, this parable where Lazarus dies and Jesus is like, no matter how many miracles I do, it's not going to save him. It's not going to be good enough. Like it's meant to replace like the Lazarus story.
Oh wait, you're talking with the rich man,
Yeah.
the rich man. Oh, I didn't. Okay, I just thought that was the same name. That's funny. I was thinking it was like John or something. Like it was just the same. It was like a popular name back then or something. That's so funny. I had no idea that was supposed to be the same
Well,
dude.
so I mean, it could have just been coincidental that just two dudes with Lazarus name, but it's the fact that the stories are mirrors of each other, like, in theme and everything like that. Both of the stories are opposites, and so like that right there makes it has to be more than coincidence that they were both named Lazarus and they both died, and then a miracle was proposed, and it's just, one has the miracle done, the other doesn't, and all this other stuff. So like it's just it's beyond coincidence in that particular respect.
Yeah, I mean, now that you're the way you're, mentioning it, I've never thought of it like that. That's wild. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I didn't realize because they're both but he brings them back and people get saved, and they're wow, that's interesting. Yeah, because they were like, if they don't have what was it? It was they didn't listen to the prophets. Well, yeah, if they didn't listen to all the prophets, then even if he raises a man from the dead, they still won't believe or something like that, right?
Right. Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's crazy. So okay, as far as like the gospels go, Mark was written first, right? And the last chapter was added, right? It was
Yeah.
and you could I was talking to Derek from Myth Vision about this. He was saying you could see the way that it was written. They say the same thing twice. Like they say it was for the time of day, I think. They like say that twice, and it's like where you can kind of see where it starts over at, or so, where they added it from. You familiar with that?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Oh, that's right. So it was just like the end of Mark, where the last chapter is like added, right? And
Yeah.
they say the same thing twice, and it's like, and I'm trying to think of what it was, but I think it was like the time of day or something. And it's like they repeat it over again for no reason. Like it was just like a couple sentences later, and then they say the exact same thing again. And he was
Right.
like, Derek from Myth Vision, he was like saying, he's like, that's part of why we know that it was added, because there's no reason to repeat that. It's actually kind of strange to have. Well, let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, so it's Mark 16:2. It says very early on the first day of the week, just after sunrise. And then on the verse 9, it says, when Jesus rose early on the first day of the week, he appeared first to Mary Magdalene. So, like, yeah, it's repeated. There's no reason for it to be repeated right there.
But they had more than that, right? To know that it was added. They had like earlier manuscripts or something that didn't have it, right?
Well, yeah. So there were manuscripts that were earlier that didn't have the second part, and so like that's why we don't actually know what the original ending was. Like it could have been, because there are some manuscripts that have a longer ending, but not as long as the longest ending. And then there's some with the longest ending, and then there's some that have like none of the ending in it. So like it seems more likely that it actually ends at verse 8 rather than continues in any kind of way. But there are multiple different versions. It's just the most likely none of the extra content was there.
Oh, that's so wild. You hear that they're doing a passion too?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I know it's like that. I mean, that movie's been done so many times. Like, there's so many different Jesus movies where he resurrects from the dead. And it's crazy to continue doing that shit.
Right. Well, I mean, I was so in the Joe Rogan experience when he was talking about that, he was saying, in order to do this story right, you got to go back and show the angels falling from the first war in heaven where all the angels were cast out. So he's gonna start it there. And he's like, man, it's going to be like an acid trip. Like, I was like, oh my God, I'm actually going to go. I mean, I'm kind of excited to see this because it's going to look terrible and I'm going to love it. It's going to be awesome. Because there's no, like, it's the whole point. Here's the thing. Like, the whole point of the Passion was that it was so realistic, right? Was that even the language was the same. They're only doing a day, and so everything was exact or whatever. As to like what it was to be. How the hell do you do the angel? Is he going to do like another language for the angels? Are they going to speak angelistic or something? Like, how does this?
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they like hired on a linguist to create like an angel sort of thing, or they could just do the whole speaking in tongues thing where they just babble. And they'll just put down below like whatever the babble means. Yeah. Can you just imagine those scenes? It's like shambhala mala boomba, and it's like down below. It's like, but how will we get out of heaven, sir? And that's just going to be ridiculous.
It'd be like the Minions. Yeah, it's gonna be a mess. I can't wait. That's gonna be awesome. Oh yeah, no, it's too funny. That cracked me up the other day when he was talking about that. It is interesting though. I didn't, going back and reading I've just read through recently, like the 4 Gospels, and just seeing just how different they were, from one another. And it's clear, like you were saying, they like trying to communicate something. The author's always trying to like put something to, a new spin on it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But for people to try to say that it was, and I remember hearing people say the reason that it was like that was because each gospel was written to a different group of people to like convince different people. And it was like one was to Romans, and that's why it was real short or something, because it was like Romans were real short to the point, and so that's why. And I can't remember which one that was. But
well, I mean, the shortest gospel was Mark's. But I mean, I think the leading opinion of scholars right now is that Mark's gospel was meant to be more of like a missionary handbook, like so it was supposed to be short, easily memorizable, so that they can regurgitate the stuff to the people without having to read from it every single time. And it also lays out like the basic tenets of Christianity throughout it. And so I think that was meant to be like a sort of a missionary sort of handbook for the first Christians. And I would agree that, each gospel was written for a particular crowd. But I think that it's because of that fact that, you know, they have to change different things that appeals to that crowd. And I feel like that kind of just adds complexity onto it. And that means that, well, if they could easily change this information and they could easily switch things around, add stuff, remove things, I feel like that means that there was no like firsthand information about any of this stuff to really go back to and be able to know whether or not it's true. They're just free to make up whatever kind of shit because there's nothing out there to rebut them, right? There's no evidence out there to say, oh no, this didn't actually happen, right? That's just not how it works. So I think that it just made the environment just made it easy for them to make shit up.
Right. Yeah. And Paul was basically just using that story as sort of a means to an end, right? Like he was kind of just using that to make himself the new cult leader, pretty much, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think Paul definitely completely believed in what he was preaching and everything like that. And I think that I don't know if he was meaning to become like a major, you know, a major figure in it. I think that he was just doing what he thought God was asking him to do. And so I don't think that there was anything malicious behind it. I think that it just sort of happened that way.
Oh, okay. So like like you think like he actually went back and asked the people that, you know, and they gave him all because it gave him all that type of information, right? And because he was
Oh
the
no,
one that
no,
collected the gospels, right?
no. You're talking about Paul?
Yeah, yeah.
No, no, no. So Paul, he only got his information from the resurrected Jesus. That's the only place that he says that he got his information from, either that or the scripture. So like he never went and confirmed his information like as being historically accurate or anything like that. He said that the other apostles had nothing to add to what he was preaching. And so, like, he already knew everything that the other apostles knew, and the only sources that he were hallucinations of Jesus, as well as reading the scriptures. And so he didn't historically verify anything. In fact, even the first church fathers like Tertullian, Papias, all them, none of them actually cared about any kind of historical veracity of their claims. They just cared about the faith. I believe it was Justin Martyr who basically had a very lackadaisical sort of view of it, in that he just was like, well, I heard it, it sounded good to me, and so I believe it. And like there just was no concern whatsoever for like historical verifiability, like of the claims. Like they just cared about the faith, what the faith taught, and how good the faith sounded to them, and that's why they believed.
So when it comes to like the other let me see if we have another call. Oh, no more call. Okay. I thought I seen one more call. But so when it comes to like the verificate, like the historians from that time, people always want to talk about Tacitus and Tacitus, like and Josephus as like verifying aspects of the Jesus narrative. But like they weren't around until after, right? So where did they get their information?
Well, so for Tacitus, he was writing in the 2nd century, so he got his information from Christians in the 2nd century. Josephus, I think that both of the places where it mentions Christ and Josephus, I think those were interpolations. I think the Testimonium Flavianum was a malicious interpolation, and I think the other one was a accidental interpolation. So I don't think that either of those actually prove anything historical about Christianity. I think that they ultimately, both of them result in just stating or regurgitating what Christians believed at the end of the 1st century, beginning of the 2nd century.
Okay, so that's just evidence that Christianity existed at that time.
Oh yeah.
Not okay.
Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah, pretty much. It just Christians existed past 64 CE, and that's pretty much it.
Okay. Interesting. That's funny. And so and there's nothing else really, right? There's no other actual evidence, right? That Jesus existed outside of those people.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, Paul doesn't talk about anything historical concerning Jesus, and then everybody else is either derived off of Paul or just derived off of what general Christians thought, like in the 2nd century. So yeah, there's literally no other evidence. But I mean, you'll have scholars like Bart Ehrman who claim that the sources behind the Gospels prove that there was a historical Jesus, but we don't have the sources behind the Gospels. We have speculations about what those sources were and what was in those sources. But considering that we don't have, any information about what was in the sources, there's no way that we can do any kind of like source criticism on them or anything like that. So there's no way for us to know what was actually historical in those documents. If they were even documents, they could have been oral traditions that were just told amongst Christians at the time, and we wouldn't be able to recover those unless they were written down somewhere. So
Right. Yeah. Oh, that is wild. Yeah, I've heard Bart Ehrman kind of go on about that, and it always felt kind of off. But well, hey, we do have one more caller.
Awesome.
Elijah, and he's from New Jersey. He's Christian and wants to compare Natural History Museum to the Creation Museum, and ask why we are convinced of our views. So let's take it.
Okay.
We'll talk to Elijah here. Hey Elijah, how we doing, man?
Hello.
Here,
Can you hear me?
yeah.
All right. How you guys doing?
Doing all right.
I was interested, Brentley. Like, it sounds like you. So I'll just say I'm a new Christian, right? Like less than a year. But I'm convinced, and it's really like, it really comes to how God's answered my prayers, and how like it's like I was far from. I would say like I was towards like spiritual things, but I was like open-minded, so many people have different views, and so many are plausible, so many preach the same things, and who's to say like Christianity is the one, but it's the only one so far, the only one that's proven entirely correct in my life. I've that's why I like talking to people like you guys, because I want you guys to make me think. You're gonna hopefully say things that I haven't thought about, and it'll lead me through weeks of confusion, which is good, and it grows my own faith. And I know, so Brentley, it sounded like you used to be a Christian, and I hear in the Bible, right? Like I hear people preach from the Bible how you can't lose your salvation. So when you say you were a Christian, do you really think you were a Christian, or did you just follow, like you were saying, you guys are saying, following the faith, whatever that like means? I'm not saying that as an attack, just like faith. You're following the religion instead of having actual faith. How would you have described your faith?
I mean, I totally believed that I had a relationship with Jesus. I thought that I felt the Holy Spirit every week, and I was very, very, very convinced of that. I was also raised in it and very, very much walled off from the rest of the world, and homeschooled and stuff like that. So there was this major divide of keeping me away from anybody, like what, almost like keeping me from doing what you're doing right now, right? Keep me from asking any questions and stuff. But I was full blown convinced, was, living my life for Jesus, and believed that I, was experiencing God the whole time.
I know that you're not trying, Elijah. I know that you're not trying to be, I guess, mean or inflammatory or anything with this question, but this question is rather shitty in my opinion. To sit there and ask atheists to justify their previous belief in it. I mean, because I'm sure that if we could cut, to me when I was 14, 15 years old, crawled up in the fetal position on my bed, begging God to take my life. I sincerely doubt that you would look at that situation and sit there and question whether or not I believed in God and Jesus and all that kind of stuff. I can assure you, you wouldn't question whether or not I believed in God or Jesus as I was going to, Wednesday night church and Sunday church every single fucking week. I'm sure that you wouldn't sit there and question whether or not I believed in Jesus as I, sat there and prayed every single day to make, for God to make all of the pain that I'm experiencing stop. You wouldn't sit there and question me if you had experienced my life. And that's why I never sit there and be like, oh, you were never an atheist. Yeah. Like, are you sure you were an atheist? Or maybe you're just faking being an atheist? Like, I typically take people at their word, and I don't sit there and speculate as to whether or not they actually believed. So, I mean, I'm not trying to be shitty towards you. I'm just saying that this question in general is kind of a shitty question to ask somebody.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I think you were misunderstanding my question because I wasn't asking like to justify your past belief. I was just, this was like actually like an observation from the Bible where it says like you can't lose your salvation. I was just like asking you guys' opinion because what Brentley said would seem like a contradiction to the Bible. Like that's all. And I think that's interesting.
Where does the Bible, where does the Bible say that, man?
I'm sorry, I can't like cite that right now. I'm driving and I actually don't know. Again, I'm a new Christian, but I can promise you I've seen it. Like you, once you're saved, you're saved. Like that's what it said. And like,
What?
You're like disputing that. If you could look it up for me, that's fine. That's how much I know it's there.
Well, no, I mean, it's, as far as I understand it, we have like the verse of the sower, the sower and the seeds or whatever, and they lose their, some of the seeds shoot up quickly and stuff like that, and then the birds come and get them, and then there's another one that roots and everything. So I mean, there is parts of the Bible where it says that people lost their faith. So, and I don't know as if there's any place that says specifically that you can't lose your faith. What I've heard people say is that if you actually were a Christian, you wouldn't lose your faith or whatever, right? But
yeah, like this is being a Christian, not believing in God. Like this is post Jesus. Like once you're saved through Jesus, you can't lose that. That's the claim. Whatever before that, I'm not sure.
Maybe I'm just I'm not understanding where you're going with this there, Elijah, but like I don't understand the connection here. Why does Brentley right now have to not contradict the Bible? Like I don't understand why the contradiction here is a problem for you right now. It seems like Brentley doesn't believe in the Bible. He doesn't adhere to the Bible.
Sorry, let me say something real quick. I'm not like, it's not a problem. Like this is, I thought the title was to have a conversation, so I'm bringing it up. I said this is something that was interesting to me. I'm not like attacking anyone.
I'm not saying that you're attacking anyone. I'm just trying to understand why this seems like why this question even came up. Brentley's not a Christian. He's not adhering to the Bible. I sincerely doubt that Brentley, as far as applying the Bible to his daily life, he doesn't give a shit about the Bible. So why does it matter if he's living his life contradictory to the Bible?
Well, okay. The question I'm asking is an unbiased one. Like, if I'm going to be biased and answer the question you just asked, like, obviously I'm a Christian, so it does matter. But when we're speaking unbiased, I'm just stating like an unbiased, like fact that was interesting to me, right? The Bible says you can't lose your salvation. Brentley said he was a Christian, and now he's not a Christian. and I'm just stating something that was interesting for the sake of conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this
Because the
is not
Bible's wrong.
interesting.
The
This is
Bible's
not interesting. Yeah, it's just the Bible's wrong. Brentley doesn't adhere to the Bible. Like, I get that you think, or maybe is your point that if you were ever really truly a Christian, then you would never leave the faith. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. The Bible claims, right? Like, I don't know if you think I'm being passive aggressive when I say it's interesting. Sorry if I think it's interesting, but and you guys don't. But
No, we're just trying to figure out what your point is.
I thought it would go to something else. We can change the topic.
No. I mean, we're just very confused as to what the entire point of this conversation is, because what it comes across to us, as far as it sounds like you're saying that Brentley nor I were truly Christian, and we didn't truly believe because now we're no longer Christian. And the only way that you seem to be able to process your reality is if somebody is truly a Christian, then they will always and forever be a Christian.
Yes, I believe that.
Okay. No true Scotsman fallacy. That's what this is. You need to look that up later. Put a pin in that. Look up what a no true Scotsman fallacy is. That's what you're violating.
Say it again.
No true Scotsman.
Yeah, no true Scotsman.
Okay. All right.
Very basic fallacy. It comes from the idea that, oh, well, if you were really a Scotsman, then you wouldn't do this thing. So no true Scotsman is going to do that thing. And it's very obviously that's a logical fallacy here. You can be a Christian in like your early years and then eventually realize that Christianity doesn't represent reality, or that Christianity is actually a horrible religion. Like, you can realize in any kind of way and leave the faith. You can just no longer believe. That has no bearing on whether or not you truly believe beforehand.
Okay, so do you think what is faith to you?
Faith in what sense? Yeah, go ahead, Brentley.
No, good question. I was going to say it's deciding that you're right about stuff that you just want to think.
Okay. To me, it's when something happens or you see evidence of something, but it's not there all the time. And you have to have faith that it was there, that it happened, and that it still exists.
So you had evidence, but then you don't have evidence anymore?
Yeah, well,
can you give me an example?
Something isn't always. So you can, I guess, identify this in any way, right? But when I so for a time, right? Me personally, I had let's say one characteristic was I had motivational issues, right? And obviously there's a lot of things like you could figure out how to remotivate yourself, right? Top 10 ways to remotivate whatever, and any of these things, they just don't work because you go to for us, logical conclusion that nothing matters, right? So when you're like, dude, what? I don't know. God help me. Like Jesus help me. I have no clue what I'm doing, what's going on. Like, it's the full submission. And then somehow, it makes no sense to me still. Somehow you get motivation. And I guess you can rationalize it in a way, make sense of it, and say you have an infinite reference for it.
Elijah, so what I'm hearing right now, first of all, you're confusing atheism with nihilism. Atheism and nihilism don't have anything to do with each other. So just let's put a pin in that.
Hold on. Can atheism? What is the purpose of atheism? Of your atheism?
What's the purpose? I don't even know. Like that doesn't make sense.
It's not tied. It's categorically different. It doesn't have anything to do with purpose.
No. That's okay. you have a world, like, think beyond the definitions. You have a world belief, right? You have an atheistic world belief, correct?
Atheism is part of my belief, but that doesn't have anything to do with what I find meaningful. I'm an absurdist. So that's what, like, which is just about the
Why are you an
conflict.
absurdist?
What's up?
What you said you're an absurdist?
Yeah, an absurdist, it's like of the absurd. The absurd is the concept that humans are always seeking meaning in an obviously meaningless universe. And so there's like a conflict there. And it's just kind of acknowledging that. And then you can decide what your meaning is. Huh?
I'm sorry, what was that?
It's just recognizing that is how the world works, that people have a desire for meaning in an obviously meaningless universe. And so you can decide your own meaning because you understand that conflict.
Okay, so you're like fully convinced of the meaning that you decide.
It's meaning to me. Meaning has to be in the context of somebody. And if you're asking me about my meaning, yeah, I decide what my meaning is because that's what's required for the definition of the word meaning. It has to be meaningful to somebody. You can't just have meaning without anybody being there. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Why are you fully convinced of the meaning that you put on your own life?
Because that's all that makes sense to me. Because it doesn't make sense to have meaning prescribed to somebody else that can't demonstrate how they know that I should be doing what they want me to be doing. That's just somebody else telling me what to do and then saying it's justified by some God that they say I should be believing in.
Okay, but that's not like the question I asked. It was why are you convinced by the meaning that you put on your own life?
Why am I convinced of a meaning? Like you would be convinced of the meaning you're putting on your life. You're just deciding that your meaning is Christianity. So you're still deciding that. See what I'm saying? I decide my meaning, it's like you decide yours.
Yeah, both Britley and I have a subjective idea of meaning in our lives, but I mean, it's just as subjective as yours. You're applying that to, you're choosing Christianity to be the meaning of your life, which I feel like is a little sad. But Britley and I, we have a different meaning to our life. We find meaning in multiple different places. Well, I don't mean to speak for Britley, but I know I have meaning in my life in multiple different places. So like, I don't know. I feel like only having one singular minded meaning in your life, I feel like that's really restricting the full experience of life in general.
Okay. It's an interesting opinion. But I still haven't gotten a good answer about why you're convinced, by the meaning, by your subjective meaning. Why are you convinced by it?
I don't know what that means. That's a nonsensical question. I'm convinced by the meaning of my life because I have determined that is my meaning in life. It's sort of like an identity thing. I have meaning that I have given myself.
It's your, okay, but you're still choosing that identity. And what I'm hearing is that, you keep saying, this is my meaning because it's my meaning. And how is that not nonsensical? That's nonsensical. I'm not hearing any sense there.
Well, no, because we're both just telling you that this is the meaning of our life, and that's just what we've made our meaning in life. Just like you have made sucking Jesus' dick your meaning in life.
All right, so you think your meaning in life is the one that you've given to yourself? That's the best one you could have.
You're doing the same thing, man. You're making your meaning, but you just happen to be letting somebody else control you and tell you what your meaning should be. You're doing the same thing. You've decided what your meaning is, and you've just decided it's Christianity. We just don't have Christianity as the basis. But are you asking why don't we have Christianity as the basis? Because we're not convinced any gods exist, and we have other reasons to have meaning.
I'm not asking why you don't have Christianity. I'm So again, like, I'm interested in your worldview. I'm asking why you're as convinced as you are that your subjective meaning, right? Let's say you have different meanings. I don't know if you guys agree. Maybe you guys do, maybe you guys don't. But your individual meanings that you've given to yourselves, your own identities, right? Why are you convinced that identity that you've given to yourself is the best one you can have? Is it the best one? Like, why?
Well, first of all, you're placing on us this whole idea that it's the best one. I mean, it's the one that works for me right now. It's the one that that both Britley and I seem to adhere to. It's the one that works best for us right now. It doesn't mean that something else couldn't come up and some other thing, be a better meaning for our life or something like that. I really don't understand what your fixation is with this. Are you trying to say that because you have an ancient magical book that determines your meaning, that you're somehow got the correct meaning? Like, is that what you're trying to say here?
Well, okay. If you think, I do think that like Christianity is the correct, it is the meaning of the universe. Yes. But I'm not like attacking that on you like right now. That's
okay, cool. So let's run with that for a second. In the Bible, if as long as you believe that Jesus is God, right?
Yes, but hold on.
Okay. No. Hold on. And you believe hold on. And you believe that God is the same in the past as he is in the present and as he will be in the future, correct?
Say that one more time.
You believe that God is constant, like he is the same in the past as he is in the present and as he will be in the future. Like God does not change.
Yes, I believe the Old Testament God is Jesus. Is the Father of Jesus.
Okay, good. I'm so glad. So why is it that you would prefer a book that has God/Jesus telling the Israelite people to kill small babies and take pubescent girls as sexual slaves?
It doesn't say the sexual slave thing. I know. Are you referring to the 30 days thing?
Nope. I'm referring to Numbers 31.
We just had the last caller read it. And he was like, "Oh shit."
This is what I'm going to say. Is that what God says to have done is what should be done, right? And like,
so you'll own another person as a slave? You have no problem owning a black person as a slave?
No, I would have a problem with owning a black person as a slave. I would have a problem with that.
God doesn't have a problem with that. So, like, I don't know. Are you being contradictory to Christianity now?
Okay, so like this is where like you take an instance of something, and it's like first you don't know the entire context behind all of it. You weren't even there. Right, and you don't know,
you weren't there.
Is this worth it, man? Like, is it worth having to do this in your mind to believe the stuff that you just became a Christian? Now look what you have to do. Look what you have to do to be a Christian.
So hold on, Elijah, please tell me what context makes taking pubescent girls as sexual slaves okay?
Again, it does not say that there's no sexual slave. There's no sexual slave. Like
okay, well, why then? Okay, if sex was not a component of Numbers 31:18, right? If it's not a component, why is it heavily emphasized that they take the virgin girls that have not known the touch of a man, and then later divvy up these virgin girls amongst the Israelite men to then quote unquote marry, but it was really to force them into a marriage, which is rape.
Okay, so like again, remember, I haven't read all of this, and I can't give you like, oh, in the Bible it says this in contradiction to what you're saying. This is what I'm going to say. Have you ever had something that you don't understand, right? And you're like, I can't believe this is happening, or I can't believe you did this. And then
no. I'm sorry, Elijah, to interrupt you. Elijah, I'm really sorry to interrupt you right now, but no, there is in no context whatsoever am I ever going to be confused about forcing children into sexual slavery or taking another person as a slave, as property. Those are two things that, for the purposes of our conversation right now, those are two things I don't have to think twice about. I don't have to think, oh, is there a context in which this would be okay? No, because it's never okay. And you would think that a God that's omnibenevolent and all-knowing and all these triomni things, you would think that he would know that as well.
I like this thing, like, I don't know how to like explain this to you. There are things you don't understand. There's things I don't understand. You can't fully understand the situation.
I'm sorry, Elijah, you're basically telling me that there are things that I don't, hold on. You're telling me right now, this is how ridiculous. You're telling me right now that there are just things that I don't understand that make the sexual enslavement of children okay. Just really, really sit on that for a second. Think about what you're saying right now, because I promise you, you do not want to make this argument, okay?
Okay, so you are creating the situation to be what you want for your own bias. Again, there's no
in the
I'm
Bible.
reading the word. I will literally hold on. No, I'm sorry. Well, we're gonna read right now. Numbers 31. Right. I'm gonna go to Numbers 31. Do you like the New International Version, or do you want me to pick one that's more scholarly? Does it matter?
That's whatever with you.
Okay, so NIV version of it, Numbers 31, 17 to 18. Now, kill all the boys and kill every woman who has slept with a man, but save for yourselves every girl who has never slept with a man. And then later on in 25, it continues with dividing up the spoils, which these little girls are. It says, the Lord, maybe I should repeat this. The Lord said to Moses, you and Eleazar, the priest and the family heads of the community, are to count all the people and animals that were captured. The people and animals that were captured. Divide the spoils equally between the soldiers who took part in the battle and the rest of the community. From the soldiers who fought in the battle, set apart as tribute for the Lord 1 out of every 500, whether people, cattle, donkeys, or sheep. So 1 out of every 500 was sacrificed as a burnt offering to God. One little girl out of every 500 little girls was burnt so that God could smell her burning ashes. And then take this tribute from their half to share and give it to Eleazar, the priest, as the Lord's part, blah, 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 blah. And it talks about how there were 3,200 women who had never slept with a man. If sexual slavery was not at the forefront of God's mind, why was he very specific about the fact that 32,000 women had never slept with a man?
I can't answer like why, but you're the one putting in the sexual slavery. You are putting that in. You would disagree. Like if we as America right now invaded Canada and we killed everybody in Canada that was either a man, a woman that had known a man, like had slept with a man, and we also killed all the boy children and everything like that, but we saved all the virgin girls and we brought them back here to the United States, kidnapping them essentially, and then planting those little girls with families here so that the men could procreate with them because they were virgins, very specifically about sex here. That you're saying that that's not rape, that's not sexual slavery. You're turning it into something that like fits your bias. Like,
no, I'm not.
There's
It's okay. You don't have to believe this stuff. This is the whole thing, man. You don't have to believe that a perfect God said to do that because it's just a book written by people, man. That's the point here. That's what we're trying to get you to understand. But the fact that you're having to do this to like, because you haven't read the Bible and you're saying you have to believe it, a thing that you don't have to say you have to. This is why you don't believe stuff that you haven't read. You know, so it's like you read stuff before you sign it.
again, I get what you're saying, but you still can't deny the fact that you're twisting it into your own bias. Like you're making it what you want it to be, so you can hate it. And
No, I'm not twisting. I'm not twisting it so that I can hate it. Elijah. I'm just reading the words off of the fucking screen right now. Okay, I'm reading the words.
Yeah,
if their virginity wasn't the important part of it, if how much sex they've had wasn't an essential part of it, then God wouldn't have said to only keep the virgin girls. Okay, that's just simple fact. Okay, this is not me like reading between the lines or twisting it so that I can hate it or something like that. It's literally just reading the words off of the fucking page right now, Elijah.
Like you've read what you've read, that's great, but you're adding like your own tone to it, and you're making it what you still like. You're saying what you're saying, but what I'm saying is still undeniable. Like it's still is like. It? It into your own body.
We can easily deny it.
Where is the sexual slavery? Like you are calling it.
Where is the sexual slavery? It's right there.
It really makes it seem like that's what's happening, and because it really makes it seem like that's what's happening to me, it must be. Because
if I kidnapped your girlfriend and then brought her back to my house and made her be my wife, what do wives do? They have sex, right? Like that would be sex slavery. When you kidnap somebody, take them home and say, you're my wife now, chained to the wall or whatever, just in a place where they can't get out. That's sex slavery, man.
Yeah, forced marriage has always been sexual slavery. And so like we can even go farther back in the Bible to Jacob, the guy who naked wrestled God in the desert and turned into Israel. Like he worked for 7 years to buy a woman, was given the wrong woman, but didn't realize until after he had sex with her, which is the way that they got married back then. And then he worked another 7 years so that he could buy the other daughter. There was never like a proposal like to the daughter or anything like that. Jacob just basically pimp walked up to their father and was like, yo, I want to purchase that daughter over there. And he's like, work for 7 years. He bought one, he worked for another 7 years, and he bought the other. Buying women is sexual slavery.
Okay, so this is what I'm going to say to that. Right? Is what you were saying, like, was that God doing that? Or was that God telling him to do that? I'm confused.
Yes.
No.
God ordered it.
So God chose Jacob to be the foundational family of the Israelite people, his chosen people. And also God is the one that, protected Jacob. He's the one that led Jacob out into the desert. He's the one that did all. So, I mean, there was definitely favoritism being shown upon Jacob, and God never said, oh, that's really bad to buy women and use them as like incubators, because it wasn't just his wives that he procreated with. He also forced the slave girls that came along with the wives to be little baby incubators for him too. So, I mean, it's forced marriage and forced sex all around.
So I look, we went away from the original like conversation into like this argument, and this is like my final like say on it. The Israelite thing again, like it's undeniable. You're turning it into what you want to believe it to be. Like
no, I'm not. I'm not going to let you finish when you blatantly lie about what I'm saying. Like I'm sitting here. I'm not twisting it.
Let me see what I'm saying. I don't know what you're saying because I'm talking right now. Okay, but again, you read what it said. You made it to be what you want.
You keep lying about what I'm doing and what I'm saying. God damn it, Elijah.
I have no idea what you're saying right now. Okay, I'm driving and I have to focus. Okay, so I'm gonna keep
don't call while you're driving.
Dude, how do you know you're not the one? How do you know you're not? Dude, can I ask you? How do you know that you're not the one turning it around so it makes sense to you?
Anyway,
so
look,
you can keep thinking your thing.
Can I say my thing and then you can talk? Here I go. All right, you guys ready? Okay, the Israelite thing. My final thing on that is that you read it word for word. I heard you. Okay, I did not hear the rape. I did not hear sexual slavery. All right, and okay, you didn't have to hear it for it to have happened, but it is your bias to believe what you want to believe from those words. Okay? I believe God is good. Okay? That's the difference. Now, when it comes to you picking representatives of God and what they've done, okay? They were not perfect. They're not Jesus. They did a lot of horrible things. They all sinned horribly. Okay? So you can't because this person in the Bible, he was a representative of God, he did a bad thing. That's not God. Okay? Now,
Dude, women all through the Bible
that you totally ignored.
I'm sorry, he's just preaching.
Yeah,
your belief is right, but I'll let you.
I gotta mute you, dude. Okay, look, women all through the Bible are seen as property. They're literally put in the property section when they're talking about it when they get raped by other people. Like it's in the same framework as like damaging cattle. Right. So no, and that's just all through the Bible. It's not like it's just that one thing. It's a continuous concept throughout, right, John?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like how he's trying to say that I'm using my bias in order to read into this when I'm just reading the words off the page. He said blatantly, Elijah, you said that you start off from a foundation of God is good, and then you're rationalizing everything with that understanding. So you're the one that's using bias. You're the one that's twisting the concepts around so that God can remain good. And all I'm doing is I'm not starting from the position that, oh, God is good all the time and all the time God is good. Like, I'm not starting from that position. I'm starting from an outside objective position, just looking at the society that they were in and everything like that, and making a determination as to what is being talked about in these Old Testament scriptures. So it's amazing to me the mental gymnastics that you're having to do in order to keep your God good. I mean, he's not good. And how we got on this topic, by the way, is that you said that your worldview is the most accurate worldview and is the best worldview because Christianity represents reality. And so I was just trying to get a sense of, like, if you really think that when Jesus being God and Jesus being the God of the Old Testament commands these horrible things, do you think that these horrible things are good? It kind of sounds like you're really bending over backwards, going face down, ass up for the Lord in this particular situation to make it seem like, oh, it's a good thing to rape children. Oh, it's a good thing to force women into marriages, which is sexual slavery. Like, all of these things are good things. Leviticus 25:44-46. It's a good thing to take foreigners as property, as slaves, as chattel slaves. So, like, that's all I was trying to do, was get a sense as to how much you actually adhere to this bullshit idea that Christianity represents reality and it's the best meaning that you can have in life.
All right, here you go. You are unmuted now. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So, I see. I know how you got there, right? That doesn't mean like you totally shifted away from the previous conversation. I know how you got there. You said that you're seeing this. I agree. I see this from a bias. Absolutely. You see that. You see your view from a bias. I see mine from a bias. That is what I said, right? I'm seeing it from.
I'm saying that I'm unbiased. I'm saying that you're the biased one.
Okay, so what you said was you're seeing it from an objective view. You believe that, or a subjective view? What do you mean?
No, I'm being objective about it. I'm being objective in that I'm not allowing like some religious tenets to cloud my view of the Bible. I'm just reading the words for what they are. I'm understanding the context for what it is.
So what do you do with like the thought when do you not think that there's any bias in your opinions?
I think that I've tried to remove as much bias as possible. I don't think that it's possible to remove all bias, but I feel like amongst or between both of our views of this text, I am the more unbiased participant.
Because if like us as an hold on, but if us as atheists showed this to anybody of any other religion, atheist, agnostic, Scientologist, somebody else, we showed them all this scripture, the way that it's written, we would probably all agree, like, oh yeah, that's pretty obviously about sex slavery. Because that's like a normal thing back then too, was like the spoils of war, keeping the women as the spoils. It was like Viking rules, I mean, we're talking thousands of years ago.
I'll actually like agree with that. I think like especially the like overall, what do you call it? Like just the way we understand the world. Yeah, I would totally agree with that. But again, like I'm seeing it from my own bias, you're seeing it from your bias. And I also don't think that, just because there's a popular opinion in the world doesn't mean it's right.
Okay. But I mean, the point was that, okay, never mind. But the point is that, look, you said that you believe God is the same yesterday, today, and forever, because that's what the Bible says. And that means if that was okay back then, and God was saying that was okay back then, that means that God believes that that's okay. You understand that's the problem here?
I see what you're saying, but again, that was at that time. That's not now.
Okay, well, but isn't it objectively immoral? How can God's morality change? How is? I thought you said God is the same yesterday, today, and forever.
I think morality change, and I don't want to go back to like you're saying what it is, and I'm saying it's not that, right? Like I don't want to like argue that again because there's no persuading that.
So,
right?
but you're saying morality, the timing, when like the time that something happens depends on whether or not it's good or not. So as long as it was back then, it was okay to take slaves and stuff.
I'm saying like what you're making it is what you're making it. Like that has nothing to do with what it actually was. Like you can be fully convinced of like whatever the imagination.
What was it actually in your mind? In your mind, what was it actually?
I'm telling you, I'm not. I can't give an answer on that. But I know it's not. It wasn't the evil you're saying it is.
Okay, okay. Then tell me how you know that it's not the evil that I'm describing it as.
Because I have faith in God. Like God is good. Like that's why. That's how I know. Like it doesn't.
No,
really
that's not a reason. Like that's not that has no bearing on it right now. Like I mean.
This is why I say it's just deciding that you're right about something you want to think. Because it's just like, because I already decided that I'm right about this. I don't know what do you mean? Like,
so you would say, so there's a good reason to kidnap young girls and force them into marriage. You're saying that there's a good reason for that.
I'm saying there's a good reason for everything that happens.
Okay, there's a good reason for it. So you're saying that in this section here, God has them go in and kill everybody, but take the virgin girls, and we can agree that that's kidnapping, right? Like that's not. You wouldn't say that's me forcing something on it, right? Like that's kidnapping.
Yeah.
Okay, so kidnapping pubescent girls that have not had sex, that's a good thing.
Like, wait, did you bring up the sex slavery again?
No.
Not even saying that, just the kidnapping part. Because that's pretty bad too, man.
I'm just trying to find something that we can agree on here. That the Israelites kidnapped these girls at the behest of God.
What? Okay, I'm saying what God commanded is good.
So it's
What
good
makes
to kidnap. So you're saying that it's good that the Israelites killed all of these families and took the pubescent girls from them and kidnapped them.
I'm saying good came from it. Yes.
good came from? What does good mean to you? Is it just anything that God says is good, and that just makes it good because he said it's good, so therefore it's good, so even bad things can be good?
Well, it's like God has an ultimate plan, right? There's an ultimate purpose, and that is good. What goes to that plan is good.
Okay, Elijah, if something good, like, tell me, would it be better for those small virgin girls to have stayed with their family, with their civilization, with their people group, or are you telling me that it's better that people group was utterly wiped out and the girls were kidnapped? You're saying that that situation is better than just leaving them the fuck alone.
I'm gonna say, hold on. I'm gonna say that, like, in the like a perfect world, right? That wouldn't be good. Of course not. But what God commanded it to happen, Him commanding it to happen, is good.
So it's better to genocide an entire people group than just to leave them the fuck alone. That's what you're saying.
I'm saying, like I said, like in a perfect world. Leave
this perfect world bullshit alone, Elijah. We're just built different. Like, I don't see any good reason to destroy an entire people group and kidnap their young girls and force them into marriage. Like, I don't see any good coming from that. And I think that any good that would come from that, we could figure out a way to achieve it without, utterly destroying their entire community. So, like, I guess we're just built different. Like, I have empathy for other people. You don't. Like, it just seems to be that's the basic difference here.
So actually, you just proved a great example, because you literally just put an assumption, or like you put words in my mouth or whatever. Like, you just defined me, right? Like I thought, like, you don't put meaning onto other people, but you just did. Like, you identified me in your own way.
No. I identified your behavior is what I did. What you have established here in this conversation is that you don't have empathy for other people. You only care about how good you suck God's dick. And that's the only thing that you care about. So no, that's me just being descriptive of our conversation.
You're saying that, but it's not true. You're saying that, but it's not true. Like, what do you think of that?
Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, this will prove my point. Do you care about how actions, affect other people? If it goes against, like, your God's will, like, is your God's will more important than how your actions affect other people?
Wait, like, my God's will is to treat others how I would want to be treated.
Well, no, that's not true. I mean, like, right here in this particular story, it's obviously like you wouldn't like you treating others as you would want to be treated. You wouldn't want some other nation coming in and killing you and taking your family, your daughter, or anything like that, and forcing them into marriage. Like that. So do unto others as others would do unto you doesn't apply in this particular situation. What we're talking about is whether or not your adherence to your God's will supersedes the needs of your fellow human. Is that does God's will supersede, like, humanity, like the needs of your fellow humans and your civilization? Like, is God's will more important?
So, like, this is definitely where we differ, because God's will is for humanity. Like he wants people to believe in Him. Like, it is for good. So like, the premise you're setting doesn't work. It doesn't work. At
every juncture in the Old Testament, God chooses to kill people that don't believe in Him, rather than, continuously working to convert them to him, and he could do it in several different ways. So he obviously doesn't care about like having everybody believe in him. I mean, he just cares about whoever just believes in him, right? He doesn't. This is the most inhumane aspect of Christianity right now, because like God would rather kill an entire group of people than, you know, basically spend time trying to convince them. So I'll ask again there, Elijah. So God's will supersedes the needs of humanity?
Like, okay, I'm going to try to like rephrase this in a way that makes more sense, like to your worldview, right? And you tell me if I'm correct. If you're talking about like what we want, like, okay, like humanism, right? Like what works best, what we think works best for us, right? As a whole, right? Our average like opinion. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying as far as humanism being more concerned with you know, your fellow man than with pleasing some supernatural deity.
Right. Yeah. I will always side with God because I don't trust humanity and their
right.
opinions.
So like, you lack empathy, and you don't consider.
No, that's not lacking empathy. Tell me how that's lacking empathy.
Because you're unable to empathize with your fellow man because you put God's will first.
I lack empathy because I can't empathize. Why can't I empathize? What does that mean? Like, explain that to me. Why can't I empathize?
You just said that you thought God mattered more. Your belief in God mattered more, and other people are evil. So if you thought and you took some belief from,
why did your voice just change? Why did your voice just change?
Never mind.
That was Brentley talking.
There's two people here. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, okay. All right. Can the one I asked a question to answer?
Go ahead, John. You're good. Sorry.
No, I said that you don't have empathy because you put God's will above, you know, your fellow humans' needs. And if you're doing that, then you're obviously not empathizing with your fellow humans, because like if your fellow humans needed something that was against God's will, then it seems to me like, you know, you would go with God's will, and that would be to deny them what they need. So that is literally lacking empathy there. You're not empathizing with them. So I mean, like you're literally lacking in empathy.
That's not empathizing. Like if someone's upset, I'm going to be upset. You know what I mean? Like that sucks when someone's upset, right? Like if something happens to someone.
Yeah, but what we're talking about right now is you're basically laying out like, oh, I'm empathizing with you, Susie, even though we killed your entire family, forced you into a marriage where you're going to be raped every night. I feel really bad about that situation, but you know, it's God's will. That's not really empathizing. That's just saying the words.
I don't think you're using empathizing correctly. Do you mean like prioritizing? Like, am I prioritizing humanity or God? I prioritize God. Humans have fallen. By the way, Brentley, you're allowed to talk. I was not like attacking you. I just wanted to make sure. I actually don't know the other guy's name. What's your name?
John.
Yeah. Empathize to understand. Right. Empathize to understand and share the feelings of others. Counselors need to be able to empathize with people. So like what I'm saying is that because of the fact that you're just sitting there being like, oh, Susie, I know that we killed your entire family and I'm forcing you to have sex with me every night. It feels really bad, but you're not actually feeling bad. You're just saying the words, oh, that's really bad. But you know, God's will is so much better. And so because this is God's will, then I guess I got to rape you every night. Like, that's not empathizing with her. That's not empathizing at all. That's just faux pretending. No, that's saying the same thing twice. That's just pretending to empathize. You're not actually empathetic, because if you were empathetic, then you wouldn't, like, the person, I don't mean to put you in the person's place, but the person wouldn't be raping the child every night. The person would not be raping the child at all. The person would not be engaging in this kind of barbaric ritual.
I really don't want to go back to that to that situation, because again, you're putting your own bias into it, and it's hard to discuss about that.
I'm really not putting my bias into it at all. Like, that's just not what's happening. I mean, you can believe that's what's happening, but that's not what's happening.
Said they're raping the children every night. Like, what?
Yep, they are. And in the story, they would be. Every chance that the husband wanted to have sex. Oh my God.
Let me
No, Brentley, I'll let you finish out this one. I'm kind of done with this conversation. This has been gross.
I feel no. Let me go this direction. Look,
John gave up, but Brentley, can we talk about the initial conversation? I'd like to go back to that if that's okay.
Okay, sure. What was the original conversation?
So, this past time you were talking to me about why I'm convinced of my belief, or challenging me about my belief, right? Which is awesome. Okay, this is definitely something we're going to look into. I'm asking you, why are you convinced about the meaning that you put onto your own life?
Why am I convinced of the meaning that I put on my own life? I that's just a really. Are you saying why am I not convinced that a God exists? Because I can. Why am I?
Okay, let's say there's infinite views, there's infinite meanings. Why are you convinced about the one you chose for yourself? Right? I heard John say it might not be the best one, but why have you chosen that one?
Because it's the only one that makes sense to me. I don't even I don't even know, because in the same way, again, that you choose your meaning for yourself, you just chose Christianity. I have a meaning that I have adopted, and really, it's just it's a bunch of things that are meaningful to me, and ethics that I think are important, and things like that. But it's not something that's prescribed to me. It's things that I have figured out through my interaction with reality, figuring out what's the best way to behave, what's what I think is important, what I find valuable, stuff like that. Does that answer your question? I'm trying to figure out what exactly you're trying to get out of it here.
No, this is it's a conversation. I'm interested in your view.
Okay. Did that answer it?
So, it started it. I mean, I'm still wondering. Do you? So, you said there are certain morals and ethics that are important to you. Do you believe in an objectivity to that, or is that a subjective thing that changes over time?
I don't think it changes. I don't know if I would say it changes over time, but it is subjective. I think and again, just like it's your subjective interpretation of what you think your God wants people to behave like, that's still subjective. But yeah, I believe that morality is subjective, because it has to be. If we're talking about behaviors and whether or not they are good or bad, you can't have good or bad talking about anything if it's objective.
Okay. All right. So you're saying they're subjective, but they don't change over time, or some don't change over time?
I mean, I don't think it should. Based on my understanding, if it's harm, I put mine as a basis of do no harm, right? And so I don't think that would change. I don't feel like we could change the definition of what is harmful over time. But I guess you could say we could get more sensitive to the needs of the people that have the least amount of say, which usually is the direction that it goes when we get more moral over time. It's usually the people without power convincing the people that do have power that their needs matter too. Right?
Okay. Is harm and what was that?
And I guess that would change, but it's the morality itself doesn't change. It's just people's adherence to it changes over time.
Okay. Would you say like harm and suffering are like different?
Harm and so well, it would depend what you mean by suffering. Like, is it suffering when you work out? Because you could say that leads to
Uh,
something good. So it depends what you mean by suffering.
actually, yeah, that's a good point. Like you're kind of like there's a harm there, like you're breaking your muscle, but like you're getting stronger. Like, what do you think of that?
No, I wouldn't call that harm. Harm is usually something where you would not like it's done to somebody without their consent, and it's something that somebody has done to them, or it's some kind of system that oppresses them, or and goes against what they would want for themselves. It's not like, oh, I have to do this
Okay.
difficult thing to have to be better or whatever. It's not like a it's not like that.
Okay, gotcha.
Because when I
Okay,
talk about
that
morality,
cleared that up for me.
I'm talking about behavior in a group, right? Like I'm talking about what behaviors are best for the people to do in a particular group, right? So, and that a lot of times people think, they mix up, religious people specifically mix up like behaviors and how to act toward one another and they mix that up with just adherence to what they think their God wants everybody to behave like. Do you understand? See how that's unhelpful, especially if
Uh,
everybody has a different God that they're thinking of.
say that last part again.
And that's really difficult if it causes a serious problem if everybody has a different God that they're appealing to as to why everybody should behave the way they think their God wants them to. Do you understand?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see. So like, okay. So I'm guessing like, are you like a believer of humanism of the humanism like manifesto?
I mean, as far as I understand, but I mean, like I said, I haven't really like looked into it specifically. I just think we should do no harm to people.
Okay.
Treat people the way they would like to be treated.
Okay.
Not, yeah.
So like thing. Do you think like over time more like global conformity is like a better thing?
If it leads to the better well-being for more people and people that have, the least among these being treated fairly. Sure.
Okay.
Just any conformity, no.
Because like one thing like I think about sometimes is like in regards to that is say like art, because that's like almost the opposite of like conformity. It's like a creative expression of many of all individuals. And when I do think about like global conformity, I think about what that does to things like art. Have you ever read the book We?
No, I haven't.
It's a good book. I'm not going to say much about it, but it's basically in the future where everything's kind of, based off of a mathematical formula, and it's pure like conformity. Like, oh, we have sex at 5 p.m. Every day, and like that kind of thing. But everything's like there's no harm. There's no harm at all. Until of course something breaks. But you see, like they don't get to think.
I think I see what you're saying. Is there a way to do no harm wrong? Is that what you're saying?
Wait, say that one more time.
Are you saying that like is there a way to do like no harm wrong?
I guess I'm saying like if there is it a good thing?
Well, I think I would put into it. I mean, if I were to back this out to like its most basic form, which I feel like there's always going to be nuances, but people should have as much freedom as possible individually without harming one another. And that's kind of like why we have courts and stuff like that determine like if one person's freedom took out somebody else's, right?
Okay. Yeah. I got you.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I have one last question, if that's all right.
Sure, one last question. That's cool. Then we got to wrap.
Okay. When it comes to like, say like survival, do you think like that's like how do I put this? Like, do you think that's like the top of like your priorities, or is that not? Is it survival as an individual, survival as a group, just or whatever? How do you see survival?
I think it. Yeah, I mean, I would imagine it would be prioritized.
Well, sorry, this is John again. I think that it would depend on what species you're talking about. There are species out there that survive alone, and then there are other social species that survive in groups. So, like for humans specifically, we would survive in groups. Like group survival is the way that we've been able to survive, thrive, and build a larger society. So, like, it really just depends on what you mean. I don't even know where you're going with most of your questions here.
This would be more like, I don't know. There are a lot of things that can prioritize survival. I was just seeing like if you think that's part of like, you know, how you should live life, because you can really get into it about like the things you eat, you know, how much you exercise, who you talk to, and like if survival is like your number one priority, those things would be a really big deal. Yeah.
Well, Elijah, I have to say that if you're looking for survival, then Christianity is definitely not the way to go about it. All you got to do is look to states like Idaho, or there's actually been a very recent case over there in Australia where Christians employing faith healing methods have caused children to die, have caused women to die, has caused people to die in general. So, I mean... so I mean, the
Christian agreeing that there's things that Christians do that can be harmful for sure.
Well, right, but you acknowledge that the Bible, especially the New Testament, has faith healing aspects to it, right?
Has what healings?
Faith healing.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing that right. Say again.
Faith healing.
Oh, faith healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Actually, that's something I've thought about. That is something I think about, because like, one thing is like, you could say like, oh, it's such a miracle that you know, they survived cancer, but you never hear that for a limb, right?
Actually, I'm thinking more about diabetes and how parents have denied medical care to children with diabetes, and they've ended up killing them in lieu of providing them with necessary medical care and medicine. They just decided to pray about it, and they killed their children. So that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's pretty tragic, definitely.
Yeah, but I mean, they were praying to God, and they were putting God first, and they were asking God for, you know, a sign or something like that. So that's got to be the better option, right? It's better that those children are dead
for you.
But the Holy Spirit told him to do it, man.
Yeah, it's better that those children are dead, right?
Like no, like I would say no.
No,
but
God is
everything.
God's the one that made him diabetic, and God is also the one that wrote in his Bible, just knock and the door shall be opened, you know, and basically pray for what you need, and God will provide it to you. So, like, it kind of seems like maybe God set it up to where if a child dies because they're diabetic, then maybe God created that child specifically to die. So it kind of seems like that's the better option, was just for those children to be fucking dead, right?
So I don't think that's good, right? It's like, as in like, I wish that didn't happen. Okay, like this is where you could say like the empathize part or sympathize or whatever. Like this, that's like I hate that. You know what I mean? But
yeah, but it was necessary to happen, right?
I believe that God made that happen. Yeah, I believe God chose that person for that to happen too. I believe that it's sad, but like say like even like you can go all the way to like the Holocaust, right? Like that's a horrible thing, but God made that happen, and
So it was a good thing then. You're saying the Holocaust was a good thing.
I'm saying it's something that was full of sin and evil, but it's part of God's plan, and everything being part of God's plan, good and bad, is good for that case.
So you just said bad is good.
Yes, good is good and bad is good. Everything's good, including the Holocaust. All right.
Wow. This is what religion does.
This is pretty fucked up. This is pretty fucked up, Elijah.
So you see how like you can be upset about something, but know that it has a reason.
No, I don't know how any of our conversation just now would give you that kind of indication.
Well, that's where I'm like thank God that I have faith. I have faith in Him.
Oh, thank God those children that had diabetes are dead. Thank God, because fucking Elijah has faith. Thank God that 6 million Jews are dead right now because, Elijah has faith.
I'm not sure how to respond to that. I will be praying for you guys for sure.
Fair response. That would have been mine too. All right, man. It's wild. All right, man. You have a great evening. All right.
I don't know. My suggestion would be,
Mhm.
yeah, my suggestion for anybody out there is don't thank God for the Holocaust.
Done.
That makes you sound like a Nazi.
Yeah, that's pretty bad. That's pretty bad. All right, take it easy. Wow, that was wild. What's so weird is that the whole thing about like not everything was meaningless, and that was like
Yeah.
his point against us. And then he literally ended with everything being meaningless because it's all part of God's plan. How did you contradict? You went against your own. Wow, that's
He's trying to row up shit creek with one paddle.
Yep, 100%. Jeez Louise, that was crazy. My goodness. All right, let's see. We got gotta read the names here. Where'd they go? Okay, there you go. Thank you to our patrons: Dan D, Logan Fisher, Fern Lovebond, Amanda McLeod, Sydney Davis, Johan, Eric Ozals, Ryan, Sonny Shell, Phil Caldron, Kathy Cotton, Tara S, Aaron Colson, Michael Wise. Hey, there's Michael Wiseman. Deborah Grace, Jenna Mayu, Jamie West, Shannon Gray, Ann Stevens, and D Murphy. I did it. I did all of them. That was awesome. Wow. I didn't think I thought I was gonna like run out like it was a side scroller game and I would just get killed by the wall. Okay. Oh wait.
Channel
Are
members.
these more? Oh, channel members. Sorry. Oh, I gotta do it again. Michael Bell, Jester Robin, Robin Webster, Duranti, Hooligan, Manuel Puente, Karen Butcher, Ember, Al Trucker, hey, Kelly Laughlin, John O'Neill, IQ, D Murphy, Left-Handed Jedi, Gene Splice, Pete himself, and growing. Oh, don't forget to check out our other shows on Skeptic Haven. Mondays, the Black Free Thinkers. Thursday, the Sunny Spot. Saturday, the Global Atheists. 30 and 60. Women Atheists Unload. And Let's Talk on Sunday. That is all the shows we got. And they're good. They're a lot of fun. We have fun around here. That's what it is. But yeah, thank you so much, John, for hanging out, dude. This was really fun.
No, yeah, thank you for having me on. Sorry I inserted so much bias in that last call.
It's pretty biased. Yeah. All that like inferring the sex slavery part when you kidnap women and take them home and make sure that they're not virgin or make sure that they are virgin.
I mean, it's really hard to make that connection of forced marriage and forced sex and rape, sexual slavery like that. I guess I can see now the error of my ways and how that's a leap in logic.
Just reading into it, man. No. Jesus Christ. It's so sad. That's why I was trying to press him. Be like, look what you're having to do, man. Look what this, you're tying your brain into pretzels for what? You're like, because I decided a thing less than a year ago. So I gotta stick with it. Jesus. It's like crazy. But all right, Joe. Well, thanks, John, again. And thank you all so much for watching. This was a lot of fun. Really
All right.
appreciate it. I am Brentley, do the Punk Apostate. That's John. He's the Godless Engineer. And yeah, we both have YouTubes. So go check them out. All right, Joe. Take it easy.
This is Skeptic Haven. Let's talk.